This week, we're setting the popcorn time machine back to December 15th, 1995, putting on our hockey masks and strapping up, taking the streets of LA by storm for one last big score. Unless the heat is right around the corner, we got 30 seconds flat to escape, so throw that TV out the car, stop talking to the dead man on the phone, because we're never going back.
For me, the action is the juice. I'm in.
Don't waste my motherfucking time!
And we are back for another edition of Popcorn Time Machine. This week, we are going to be going over the 1995 classic directed by Michael Mann. You know him from The Jericho Mile, The Last of Mohicans, Ali, Collateral, Miami Vice, a whole bunch of stuff. This thing is a huge ensemble cast. This is the likes of, obviously, Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Val Kilmer, Jon Voight, Tom Sizemore, and you have a bunch of little other random people that I figured would be fun to point out. We have Hank Azaria, who is a back-to-back Popcorn Time Machine episode
heating up.
guest. Yeah, he's heating up.
He's heating up.
Natalie Portman, this is her second ever movie. Danny Trejo, Henry Rollins, who you might recognize from Sons of Anarchy, as well as the lead singer of Black Flag, and a pretty young Jeremy Piven before he got his hair plugs for Entourage. So crazy cast. This movie is an all-time classic, regardless of what the Academy Awards said that year. So let's get into some stuff here. But of course, obviously, I cannot do this alone. So what I would like to do this week, I'm going to introduce everybody. Every time we kind of do something a little bit different with our introductions to kind of tie it into the movie a little bit. But what I would love to hear is your favorite line from this movie, because there is a plethora. And I'd love to hear it in the same tone and voice that is seen in the movie. So I hope you guys have those ready, because there's a whole bunch you could pick from. I've got a handful ready in case somebody takes mine. But let's just kind of bring everyone up to speed, because the Popcorn Time Machine is a pretty heavy lifting object. I cannot do this alone. So with me tonight, we have the full cast and crew. So Kevin, hello, and what is
again.
your line? What is your heat line?
Well, it's Sizemore's line. His voice isn't very distinct, unlike Pacino or De Niro, but it's, well, you know what? The action is the juice. I'm in.
A true wild card. That man is down for everything.
He was down. He actually told him like that. What do you want me to do, boss?
He was trying to talk him out of doing the thing, and he's like, you know what?
And De
He
Niro
realized
said
that he was... When he
said, "Not
realized this
time."
was going to be over, he's like, no. You know what? You know what? It's the action, bro. That's what I'm here for. You know, it's the juice.
Yeah. That's a classic that will come up again, I'm sure, during our course of this time. Jimmy, welcome to the Popcorn Time Machine, and hit me with your heat quote.
Mine would have to be, and he's got a great ass, or she's got a great ass. Oh shit!
He's got a great ass.
He's got a great ass.
What movie were you watching?
Roadhouse.
That one's called
Roadhouse.
He's got.
Nailed it. A for effort, Jimmy. That's great.
Diaz, we got you with us. Hit me with your line, because I'm sure you've been reciting this one in your head.
I ain't your cuz, you rap motherfucker. Love that shit when he was in the club with him. I ain't your cuz, you rap motherfucker.
Sil, what line spoke to you?
Dude, when Neil McCauley goes, I do what I do best. I take scores. You do what you do best. You try to stop guys like me.
All right. Well, I mean, all of my favorite lines were all Pacino's. So Jimmy took one of my big ones. So I just love the little junkyard scene. The don't waste my motherfucking time.
Yeah.
I just spit water on the computer.
He is insane in this.
He is wild.
I think a runner up to is the give me all you got. Give me all you got.
God, he's so desperate every time.
He's
Love it.
Insane.
Did you fall in love last night? Just tell me. You fell in love last night. I'll buy that.
Not my TV set. It's like, what?
The reason he's so crazy, or he has like all these crazy outbursts, is because Michael Mann had this backstory of him as like a major cokehead, and that's
Mhm.
why he has like these insane outbursts.
Well, that
Dude.
makes
Eyes.
That makes a lot of sense. I heard in an interview that they said that they didn't want to. They didn't
That was
want
going to
to
be like
take
his
away.
backstory.
Yeah, they didn't want to take away from the movie, so they just like left it like that. But it shows. That's so
I mean,
funny.
that would kind of
So funny.
blend it a little bit more because you have like the good guy versus bad guy. And
Right.
there's not really a lot of good about De Niro. So like you don't really want to murk up the water of the good, I guess,
Right.
unless you added more backstory to De Niro. And you're like, well, he's a bad guy, but he's actually pretty good. And then you have like the good guy who's kind of not
Bad
so
guy.
good. So that would have made sense if they added more for Bob, but I don't think they needed to add more to this movie because it's already pretty hefty.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
So let's go around, because when we talked about this previously, myself included, I had only seen snippets of this, pretty much the best ofs. I haven't watched the full movie, and I don't know how I hadn't watched the full movie. So let's just do like initial thoughts of this before we really dive in. And Kevin, I think this is one of your favorites. So why don't we just start with you, the fan favorite of Heat?
I've probably seen this movie more times than I can count.
Nice.
It might not top the list, but I mean it's up there. I don't dare say it's the gold standard for these kind of action movies, but it might be the gold standard for these kind of action movies.
That's fair. That's fair. I'll take it.
It's a great heist movie, Kev.
Yeah. Diaz, I know this is like another one of your favorites too. So I mean, do you remember the first time you saw this? Or
When I was young when I first saw this, and the thing that caught me was the second bank heist, with them trying to get away, or the automatic weapons within the city, and them hitting the cops from different angles. And I remember the little kid like, these like street soldiers in my head. I was thinking as a kid, I was thinking all types of crazy stuff, but I was like, that's a crazy scene.
That's gotta be wild.
It caught me as a kid. As soon as I started hearing that gunshots, I was like, what the hell is this? And I was just stuck.
Invested.
And you can hear gunshots in this movie.
Yeah.
Oh, they the way they did that was really, really cool. I guess
We'll talk about it. Yes.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll talk about it when we get to that scene. But still, have you seen this previously? Or are you in? Yeah,
this
you're
was
in my boat.
one of those, another first of mine. Like 95% of the movies we watch here in the podcast. But dude, this movie is awesome. It was awesome. And, oh, sorry, my dog.
Yo, he liked it too.
Yeah, no, she liked
You're
that.
gonna
When
get
he
killed
goes to
walking
the
your
junkyard,
doggy.
he goes crazy. Yeah,
He does say that loud.
yeah, he goes crazy. No, Granola loved it too. This movie's awesome. It's awesome because I love heist movies when things like Plan Out, like Ocean 11s or Italian Job, movies like that were so cool. And this one is just beautiful, masterpiece. Not one time I said it's too long.
Yeah.
It was great.
It's a very fast 3 hours. You know, it doesn't. I feel like when we talk about this scene by scene, there's only like there's a lot of scenes, but really only like 4 or 5 major moments, and it really does well at making it, you know, not stretch on too long. But Jimmy, fan favorite of yours as well, or?
Yeah, I like heist movies, especially, this kind of became the gold standard for a lot of heist movies like The Town and, and I loved how it was kind of billed as like the showdown between Pacino and De Niro, because they were in Godfather Part 2, but obviously didn't have the same scenes because all of De Niro's scenes took place in the past as his father. So this is them finally like actually meeting up for the first time, and
no pun intended with heating up, huh?
Yeah.
I like it.
Dun-dun-dun.
So yeah, I love it.
Yeah, this was, I can't say that heist movies are like my thing. I don't dislike them and I don't seek them out. But when I stumble upon one that's as good as this, it's hard to not recognize, the greatness on the screen. I think the extent of my, heist movies, I've seen stuff like The Italian Job, the Ocean's movies, The Town. I've seen those, but I don't often go back to them.
Right.
I do. I am an absolute sucker for Fast and the Furious. That is an absolute guilty pleasure. And, there's a couple of them that are heist movies, but they're more action crew oriented, where I think this kind of they fit sort of in the same realm. There's one Fast movie that's very, very much a heist, but I mean, this thing blew me away. Like Sil mentioned, this is a long movie that doesn't seem long. It doesn't really draw out, and there's really, unless you cut a storyline, there's not much you can cut.
Right.
As far as there's no fat to trim. They kind of get in, get out. Every scene, they're just firing on all cylinders. So that's where I kind of stood with this movie. So, I mean, this is a absolute loaded cast. Now, Jimmy, you had mentioned this was like the first time that, you know, it was billed as such, like, you know, see De Niro, see Pacino on the screen, same time. Did you find any info on like any potential swaps on this? Like, was this built for these two?
Yeah. Michael Mann always wanted to work with Robert De Niro, especially after seeing Mean Streets all those years ago. So this was like a perfect opportunity. And then he wrote the character for, is it Detective Hanna? Is that his name?
Victor Hanna,
Vincent.
Vincent Hanna. So he wrote that character for Pacino, and you know, obviously gave him that insane background. Actually, who was going to play Chris, believe it or not, was going to be first choice was Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves couldn't do it, but in '95 when this movie came out, Val Kilmer was able to squeeze it in while making Batman Forever.
While making it.
Yeah, well, and then obviously this is just the huge cast. I mean, you have even Ashley Judd, a very young Ashley Judd as Chris's wife. Like you said, you know, you have Natalie Portman, who went on to have a huge career, and this is only her second film. And I think her first film was probably Leon the Professional.
I believe that was her first, right?
Yep, because she's like even younger in that.
Damn, I love that movie too.
Tom Sizemore, you know, he had a interesting personal life, but I mean, he was known after this pretty much for being parts of like incredible war movies like Saving Private Ryan, Black Hawk Down. Yeah, the huge cast.
So one other thing, I'm not sure if you know more about this than I do, but I did see that at one point, and I don't know what happened personally, but Kevin Gage, the guy that plays Waingro, went to prison for 2 years or something like that, and everybody in prison called him Waingro.
Well, and so did Danny Trejo. Danny Trejo was in prison.
Yeah, two very different prison stints. Danny Trejo's grew up most of his adult life in prison.
Well, he went to the same. He went to the same prison in the movie as I believe Neil goes to, or went to.
Yeah.
Holstrom.
So Gage went to prison, I think, 2003 for growing marijuana, and he did 2 years.
Yeah. I believe Danny Trejo was also like a consultant, like because I think he was in armed robberies, I believe.
Yeah. So I mean, if you haven't read Danny Trejo's autobiography, it's pretty good. I did. Is
that what he went to prison for though?
He went to prison so many times. Pick something.
Okay. So
he was in prison for a long time. Like he spent his first out of his first 30 years, he probably spent 19 in prison.
Yeah, he got out in his mid 40s, didn't he? Like early 40s when he got out, didn't he?
He was a heavy addict, which lent a lot to his problems. But when he finally got out, he was doing recovery. After he was recovered, he started working in recovery and helping people. And then he was the sponsor for somebody who called him and said, "I'm in a bad spot. You got to come down here right away." And he was an actor. And Danny Trejo went down there as his recovery sponsor. And it was I forget what movie it was, but it was there was a prison scene or a prison movie. And so Danny Trejo's walking around, and the director's like thinking he's one of the extras because this guy's in the prison scene. Right. And Danny's like, no, he's that guy's recovery coach. And he's like, well, get him over here. And he got put in the movie.
That's been his shtick, you know. He's always in that role, whether it's Breaking Bad, Sons of Anarchy, this, you know, he always has that criminal role.
Desperado.
Oh, he's got that face. You can't get rid of that face. He's just
that face has seen some shit.
Yeah. Like he's
Michael Myers killed him.
So Danny Trejo was hired to play
Yep.
the role of Trejo in this movie. He and Edward Bunker, a writer, were hired to be armed robbery consultants since they both did time for these crimes and knew the ins and outs of performing such crimes.
Nice.
Yeah, it's just like Kev said, when Michael Mann spotted Danny, Mann introduced him to De Niro and Pacino, Kilmer, and Voight, where they discussed the cops and robbers shtick. After the meeting, Trejo would earn the role.
So the first movie that Danny Trejo was in was, I guess it was called Runaway Train in 1985, which again, he showed up. He's only on the set because he was brought in because he was the sponsor of one of the actors. And I don't know if it still holds, but Danny Trejo has more on-screen deaths than any other actor. He's like, in his book, he talks about how many times he's been shot in the face, stabbed, run over, blown up and stuff. So
yeah, it's between him and that the guy that played Ned Stark for the most deaths in a movie. I read some.
Sean Bean.
Yes, them two. I'm talking. It was like that because Sean said the same thing.
And again, if you haven't read his book, it's a good book. And he was in the movie Blood In, Blood Out, and they were filming in San Quentin. And they found him like kind of distressed and off by himself, standing on the block that they had cleared out and they were using for filming. And he was in cell 550, and they were kind of like, "What's going on?" He's like, "This was my cell. I spent years in here." And they were filming a movie on the tier.
I remember I was so scared of him when I first saw him in Spy Kids. I was so scared of him.
I actually ran into Trejo once.
Oh,
you did? I think I've seen the picture.
I ran into him at the Dublin airport.
Oh,
over in Ireland. He was going over to Germany. I was coming home. And like, even when you see somebody so distinguishedly like, oh, this is definitely Danny Trejo, you still like second guess, especially in that situation. I'm like, why the fuck would Danny Trejo be in Dublin at the airport? And I saw somebody taking a picture, and we were kind of late for our flight. So we were running, and I was like, I don't care if I miss my flight. I have to go say hello real quick. And I slowly went up to him, was like, and you could tell, like, you're at the airport. It sucks. You're traveling. Like, you don't want to be there. I'm like, hey man, I hate to do this. Like, you're Danny Trejo, right? And he's like, yeah, man. I was like, dude, that's awesome. I was like, don't even stand up. I just wanted to shake your hand. Is it cool if we grab like a quick picture? Like, and I'm gone. Like, we'll never. And I was like, what are you doing in Ireland? And I think he said he was going over to Germany to film something. At that time, I don't know what that could have been. I could probably backtrack and see what kind of came out a year later. But yeah, one of the most random celebrity interactions I've ever had. Just
in
Dublin Airport. Danny Trejo in Dublin. But yeah, super fun. But I'm sure we'll hit on some more cast stuff as we go along. But let's get into real talk. Now, this segment, we kind of just discuss this movie. We break it down sort of into chapters and kind of shoot the shit on the scenes and stuff like that. I kind of broke this one up a little bit more. I didn't line up the scenes 100%. They're pretty close, but there's topics that I wanted to talk about that we hit a certain point, and the stories, because it's so many different stories, they sort of overlap in different ways. And I felt it was more fluid to just attach them to other areas. So we'll kind of see that as we go along. But the first chapter, we're really just setting the stage, right? This thing opens just like a bat out of hell. We're opening up with that little, all these people are doing, and it kind of confused me at first. So it's like, it's just people shopping. What are they doing? And then it jumps right into that truck heist scene, because it shows you clips of Chris like buying stuff for the explosives, and they're off doing stuff, and you don't really know what's happening yet.
Right.
And you get that first scene. You get to introduction of the crew. So obviously they slam their truck into this other armed truck, and they're not messing around. They're in and out. They know what's going on. They know the call. They know how long before the authorities are going to come. And that's sort of where we get this rundown of the crew. You can kind of initially just see it. And I just kind of have it as listed as, you have Neil, played by De Niro, who's really the leader. He's the ringleader. He's the one really calling the shots. He's the one that's main on the headphones. Like, okay, you're 2 minutes out. All right, we got you. You have Chris, who is seemingly from that point the number 2 guy. He's kind of his partner in crime. He's, you find out later he's a pretty big gambling addict, and that's the why. That's why he's doing these crazy.
It's almost like he's it's like a mentor protege relationship almost.
Exactly. Yeah. You have Michael, played by Sizemore, who Kevin, referenced his line earlier. I'm here for the juice, or this is the juice. The action is the juice. But I kind of referred to him as sort of just Mr. Down for anything. You know, he's the guy that
Guy's
he's
business,
probably like you mentioned, Kevin, you have protege and leader. He's not really trying to be the leader. He's just reliable. You know, you need him. He's there.
He's just sergeant in arms. If it was like Sons of Anarchy, he'd be your sergeant in arms.
Well,
exactly.
That description of him is like reinforced by when they get tipped when Vincent gets the tip from that guy's brother, and he's like, I saw this guy that just got out of prison, and he told me he's got nothing going on, and this guy's an action junkie. Like if he told me everything, if he told me nothing's going on, I know he's got something going on. So to your point, like he's literally there for the juice, baby. The action is the juice.
Yep. You had Trejo, who is really just the driver. You know, he's kind of silent. He doesn't play a huge role in this, but he's the getaway guy, which is in heist movies, you know, one of the most important pieces. And then you had Waingro, who was getting picked up on the way to the heist after screaming at some food service person. So you can already kind of tell, like, this guy's the wild card. He's
What's your name?
Waingro.
the outside hire, and we definitely learn a lot more about him. That
Never
little
use
heist,
freelancers.
Yeah, Craigslist.
Yeah, exactly. Craigslist. Yeah,
a temp agency.
I know.
But we see the.
Where would you hire your heist people? Leave in the comments. Which website would you go to? If you Upwork.
What's your resume look like?
Yeah, well, his quality he would have been on Fiverr.
Send your resume. Submit your resume. Oh my God, cover letter.
Yeah, so the heist, they slam in there, they get what they need, which we don't really know at the time, but it's gonna be it's bonds of sorts. Just from there, Waingro is just gonna fuck everything up. He's staring at the one guy. He's, you talking to me or something along those lines. It's like, yeah, you see the shit coming out of their ears. They can't hear you.
Hey, Slick, you see that shit coming out of their ears? They can't fucking hear you. Cool it.
Yep, Slick. And it goes from just a robbery to now a triple homicide because, of course, Waingro has to kill the guy. They immediately turn and they shoot the guy that starts reaching for his gun. And then you have the poor bastard that's just left there not doing anything. And he just gets double tapped in the chest and then one in the head. He is done.
The guy that made no movement whatsoever.
No.
Yeah, he's just done. The one thing that I thought was pretty interesting. So we go right from this to Hanna's team kind of showing up, sort of initiating this investigation now. They got that name, like you were saying. Oh, I heard a guy say Slick. That was like the homeless guy with the TV. That guy was actually a homeless guy with the TV.
Church.
He was not an actor. He was actually living there, and he had that TV. And the business owners would allow him to plug his TV in to watch it overnight and stuff like that outside. So they kind of cast him in this role. He's not an actor. That's what he is.
That's hilarious.
He's a homeless TV guy.
Like people give money to homeless, give jobs to homeless. They give everything. You just gotta ask.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Hopefully he bought a new TV. But this is where you start to see that the wheels are turning and we're on an absolute collision course between these two crews. Hanna even immediately picks it up. He's like, these guys are good. They were in and out. There's a freeway here. There's a freeway there. They knew the out. They knew our call. They knew how long they had. And they didn't hesitate to leave, one witness. They knew that after they killed the first two, the charge doesn't increase if you kill 3, 4, 5, or 6. Once you hit 2, it's over.
You recognize the MO? MO is that they're good. Once it escalated into a murder 1B for all of them after they killed the first 2 guards, they didn't hesitate. Pop guard number 3 because what difference does it make? Why leave a living witness? Drop of a hat, these guys will rock and roll.
Also, the helicopters. I didn't realize the helicopter thing they did. By destroying the cop cars, the helicopters in the news always look for crashes. So when it said they knew to distract the helicopters with the cars. That's why they did that. Yeah. That automatically made the helicopters look, there's a crash. That's what we're here to cover. The explosion was the crash of the cars. So that's all they focused on. They didn't see cars anywhere else.
I was going to add on, Nick, like this is kind of where the movie introduces Hanna's skills, right? Like the first scene that he gets on is like him making love to his wife and whatever. It's this passionate guy that it's very like intense. But this is actually when we see like he is not just that crazy guy. He actually knows what he's talking about. He picks up some clues. He's also the shortest guy of all of them. I don't know if you noticed. He's talking. He's like, "Yeah, you go here. You're here." And I'm like, "What happened here?" He's short. I don't know how tall Al Pacino is in real life, but that's so funny.
He came in firing. He just like it was, he's obviously, and we'll learn this throughout the movie, that he's been around the block. This is not his first rodeo. He looks just at the crime scene and is like, well, this happened. This is why. These guys are good. We kind of have our work cut out for us.
He knew about the explosive, like the shape of it. He's like, that's not a regular explosive.
Yeah. Run the name Slick. You're going to get the book. That's okay. It's just like,
you're going to get the phone book. Do whatever.
He's just delegating immediately. Like, this is what you're going to do.
Cameras are probably disabled. Check them anyway.
Yeah. And, they kind of made away with it. They got out of there. And that's where Hanna starts to really piece together the whole clue and stuff like that and what's going on. After this leads us to one of our two diamonds, the less famous of the two, I'd say. I think they're at a dimer, but this is where the team kind of goes to immediately after their, I guess they know they got away or they think they got away.
They lost their stars in GTA.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're trying to reduce stars.
They lost their stars and they're like, okay, let's go into this diner.
Let's go have some food. You can tell Neil doesn't put up with this shit. He has, I think Trejo gets up and is like, I gotta go to the bathroom. It's like, I don't know if he's going to the bathroom or not. Yeah. He's kind of out of the scene now.
Yeah.
And then you have
like a mob hit.
Yeah. You have Wayne Grow who's just like, well, I had to. He was making a move. De Niro just starts slamming his head against the window. And during that scene, I loved the one little bystander who just stares out.
Yeah.
And Michael just stares at him. He's like,
that's a good scene.
Right.
That's like it just without a word, the good acting, right? Sizemore just
that's my theory of this movie where iron sharpens iron. You have like the two top-notch guys. If every scene is revolving somewhat around De Niro and Pacino, everybody else is going to bring their absolute A game. Like you can't be on set, go toe to toe with these guys and not absolutely bring it. So like, I think if this movie had somebody, two people other than Pacino and De Niro in those roles, it wouldn't be, obviously for many reasons, it wouldn't be the movie it is, but we wouldn't get this style of act from Sizemore and Kilmer and all those other guys either. They would, I think, falter a little bit because they don't have to go head to head or toe to toe with, arguably the best actors in that day and age.
Right.
So we go from that. We do know that Trejo was not going to the bathroom. He was going outside to set up the little kill trunk. If you're with the crew and you open the trunk and that thing is tarped out,
dude, legit.
That's like funny. My father says something that's like, when you open a trunk and you see a trash bag like that, there's a body going there. If you ever see a silencer, that you're not living to tell the tale.
Yeah, you're going there.
Yeah.
This one is just.
I got a funny thing. So the first time I watched this movie, I missed this part. So like the whole movie did not make sense for me for the first, for a whole hour. I was like, what happened here? Like, how did they get here? But like, I was enjoying everything. So when I rewatched it, that whole scene when he goes and Wayne Grow, you're about to cover, he leaves and they can't get to him. I missed that he escaped.
Right. For being a professional crew, the one thing they effed up was
you had him on the ground at gunpoint. How did he get away? Where did he go?
They got the gun. I'm like, okay, they got him. Oh, and I missed that he escaped. That was funny when I rewatched the movie.
This movie has so many moving pieces. It took me like through my second watch to figure out like, who we're skipping ahead, but like who ratted who out? How did they learn this? Who is this guy? There's so many sub characters where you're just like, how does this person even play
into it?
It didn't connect for me until at least my second watch.
The brother that he meets at the nightclub is the first crack that leads to the whole thing. When he's walking away and he's like, no, Slick's the real deal. And he stops and Pacino turns around and says, what did you just say? This guy, he calls everybody Slick, and he slides back into the booth.
Wait, he said something. He doesn't say, what did you say? He said, speak more, something like that. It's just like, more talk. And you're like, what?
Hey, Vince telling you, man, this Slick is no motherfucking joke, man. You know what I'm saying? Double time.
Say what? Say what?
What?
You said slick. What does that mean?
Slick. That's what he calls people. Slick.
And tell me about him.
And that's
so
kind of
funny.
where we're at now too. We're in this investigation period where Hannah goes to meet, and I forget again. There's a billion sub characters. I forget to meet. He meets the guy at the junkyard, and that's where we get the amazing lines of don't waste my motherfucking time. And they're setting the stage up to bring in this other character to kind of spill the beans. But again, this just goes to Hannah being so good at like knowing these low life scumbags and being like, there's a network here. This guy knows somebody who knows somebody.
He marched right in there to like this shanty town with the dog fighting and stuff. And he's like, Hannah, what the hell are you doing here? This ain't Disneyland.
Well, is he here? Is he here right now? He meet you at 2 a.m.
No,
2 a.m.
I told him he should be here, but he's in Phoenix. Oh, by the time I get to Phoenix.
Yeah, you start singing. The crew had to like hold it together on that one. I can't imagine nobody started breaking because there's no way Michael Mann wrote that in the script. Pacino was just going off on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we get that. We go to the little club scene, and again, Pacino's just absolutely hitting home run after home run.
Off
with
the
these
rails
lines.
in there, just off the rails in the club.
It's just, you got something to tell me or what? You can get killed walking your doggy.
When he walks up to the, give me your money. It's so funny. Like he just pulls up by himself. Yeah, he pulls it off, man.
He's going crazy. So we kind of, Hannah's getting closer. He's gotten some breadcrumbs now. That Slick alias is no longer just a random phone book size of, possible criminals that go by the name Slick. No, we got the guy who calls people Slick. And that was one of the question marks.
The informant knew his actual name. That's what
exactly. And he
was
just
mentioning
he's got these tattoos.
Had Pacino turn around and come back, and then he's like, "Tell me this Slick's name or something." And that's when he gets the name that it's Michael.
And that's one that kind of threw me the first time, where I was like, "There's no way that they're just finding a guy called Slick and finding the person that was like, okay, no, they didn't find the guy name. So like they know that this person calls everybody Slick." So that made a little bit more sense for me when I was watching that second time. But we kind of jump back now to De Niro's crew, and they're trying to sell. This is a part that still kind of confused me a little bit. So they took those bail bonds or whatever, and their plan was to sell them back to Van Zandt.
Well, the plan wasn't originally. That wasn't the plan originally. The plan originally was to sell them to a fence. Get 40 cents on the dollar or something. And then what's his name? Nate, is that the guy that brokers the deal? Mm-hmm. He just comes up with the idea. Well, first he realizes who they are, and he realizes that it's this guy who launders drug money.
Yeah, it's a corrupt dude as it is.
Yeah, it's a corrupt. Yeah, it's not like he's going to deal with a bank. And he's like, this guy Pacino or De Niro says he's got insurance, and that Nate's like, exactly. So he's going to get 100%. So if he pays us 60 on the dollar to buy these back, he's still up 140, and now we get 60 instead of 40. It's just a
you helped them out actually.
So that's when Neil McCauley says, "Oh, float it, see what happens." So that's when Nate calls him, and
those are the details that like set up this movie a lot. That you could just be on your phone or whatever, or just miss it, and then like the movie becomes a little harder to grasp.
That makes me think about Van Zant, right? Van Zant, right? Not Van Zandt. Van Zandt. Yeah. Look at the offer on the table. You're gonna get 100% of your money back. You're gonna pay us 60. We're gonna give you 40. So he's coming up 40. This isn't a guy that's just a stupid banker. A stupid banker out of fear would have taken that 40% buyback, that money. This is someone that is connected to somebody. I wish we would have got to know more about Van Zant, because you don't launder money yourself. He's laundering somebody's big money. Right. It's someone that Van Zant is working for, that he's not scared of whoever just robbed him, that he's making killer moves by himself.
He makes a point to be like, we need to make sure that people know not to steal our shit.
Well, that's what he says first. He's like, so the word on the street is you can steal my stuff or something like that. So
yeah,
it's about reputation.
Nobody knew the merch was yours. Be that as it may, my way you get 100% from the insurance company, and take the bonds back from us at 60 cents on the dollar and make yourself another 40%. The operation doesn't skip a beat, everybody makes out.
Sure, you got a deal.
Good, because there's no percentage everyone gets their underwear in a twist over this.
Yeah. So you have your man call me and we'll set the meet.
Yeah, okay.
Nice talking to you. You gonna deal with these guys? So word's on the street, it's okay to steal my stuff. I'm gonna kill the sons of bitches.
Yeah, and he's got Henry Rollins there, who's sort of just like his number 2. He's a henchman, a bodyguard. There's really no defining term of
He's
what
like
Rollins
the
is.
least intimidating guy.
They just wanted to find a spot for him in the movie.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he wasn't really a big character actor at the time, I don't think. But Jimmy, do you know more about Rollins and where he was at that point? Because he doesn't seem like he was a person that you're like, well, we need Henry Rollins in this film.
Yeah, I just remember him from that band. It's pretty much
Black Flag.
Black Flag. That's I forgot when I saw this again because it's been a while. I was like, oh shit, that's Henry Rollins.
Yep. And I immediately recognized him as Weston from Sons of Anarchy.
Sons of Anarchy.
He played like the Nazi guy.
And he's kind of the number 2 in that, isn't he? He's kind of like the henchman muscle in that.
Yeah. So we get that whole Van Zandt thing, and that kind of brings us to the whole fake deal setup where De Niro is there to, sell, or toss the bonds back to them. He's going to get the cash. Pulls up in what looks like to be it's a drive-in theater. It's a old deserted drive-in theater.
Oh, that's
and he's very very deliberate. With your right hand only, grab the package, throw the package into my car. Don't move. This is that. And then it cuts to a scene of somebody slowly creeping out the car. And you're like, this is interesting. Chris, who is up top on the roof, just watching his back as his, good number 2.
Just shows how smart De Niro is. He
knows, don't trust anybody.
Yeah, nobody.
He's like, oh, on your back, on your right. And he's like, oh, and De Niro flips that thing in reverse, hits the guy with his car, pins him out, and then starts a little bit of a shoot up between the two. So it was a setup by Van Zandt to try to kill these guys. Which, again, the first time watching it, I was like, oh, this is the cops? Like the LAPD's doing a fake buy setup? Like I just didn't put the 2 and 2 together because it was like such a quick, like we said, they don't mess around.
He's driving like
probably a Jack station wagon.
What do you call those cars that you put the dead people in?
Hearse.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah. So during the movie, Neil McCauley isn't seen driving the same vehicle twice ever.
Which is, a telltale sign that he just knows how to lose tails and stuff like that.
Which we'll talk about more eventually, but it speaks to the detail that is woven into this film that you wouldn't even realize most of the stuff.
Yep.
But just little stuff like that.
The character development is so pristine and
and again, I mean, maybe I don't know if you mentioned this, but I mean, Neil McCauley was a real person.
Yeah.
So the story is based on a real heist thief from Chicago. Michael Mann is friends with the Chicago detective that hunted him down and eventually killed him. And that's kind of where this story started.
This already started as like a TV movie before. Called
I don't think it ever made it. It was LA Takedown, I think was going to be the name of it. It was in like 95. Michael Mann was working on it. And I think the story is that they could never come to agreement on the casting. So I guess it kind of got shelved. And then he went back to it back later in the 90s and made the movie.
Makes sense. But after this is where we sort of get, I mean, we've already seen De Niro in action, but this is where you're like, all right, this guy's just not fucking around. They're at some restaurant, some pay dial phone, and he's on the phone with Van Zandt. And he's like, oh, you didn't get the money? You didn't get the money? Or something like that. And he thinks everything went according to plan, or he's trying to play it cool, where he's just like, not like, yeah, I just totally tried to double cross you, and my plans are all fucked now. But
forget the money. Forget the money.
Yeah, exactly. That's where we get the forget the money. He's like, what do you mean forget the money? What are you doing? He's like, I'm talking to an empty telephone. Like, what? Because there's a dead man on the other end of this fucking line. And he just hangs up and you're like, all right, Bobby.
That scene made it 10 times better. The fact that he was calling from the back of a restaurant in the middle of the kitchen.
Yeah, just a random.
Yeah, he just like, I'm going to use this phone, guys. Hold on.
Yeah.
And just like made this massive threat of like, you're a dead man, which I also read that this scene particularly inspired Christopher Nolan on The Dark Knight, just like how like the psycho terror of it to kind of like help develop the Joker on it, and it has that kind of feel. Now I'm blanking, but like, is there a scene where there's kitchen in The Dark Knight? I don't think so.
Yeah, they met in the kitchen. I think it was they met in the back of a kitchen.
Is that when
Oh,
the guy
yeah,
like
the meeting.
the magic trick?
Yeah, yeah,
When he
Yeah,
goes to
yeah,
magic
back in the
trick.
kitchen, yeah.
Yeah. So like that kind of just disappeared to pen. Oh my god.
Weird connection that I think, Jimmy, you probably know more than I. The actor that plays Van Zant, isn't he in the Dark Knight series?
William Fitchner. He's in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
He's always kind of that guy.
Prison Break. I remember him.
Prison Break. He was in The Perfect Storm. He was in. Oh, he plays Captain Knauer in The Longest Yard.
Oh,
quarterback.
yes. Yeah.
Yep. He's in a
He
lot
has
of
like
stuff.
a trouble face. You look at him and he's troubled all the
I
time.
feel like he doesn't age either. I mean, I
True.
feel like he looks
Yeah,
the same
no.
as Dark Knight than he
Everything.
did in Heat.
True.
And it's probably 20 years after the fact.
That's so true.
This is where we kind of shift into one of the other chapters. As I just kind of referred to it as cat and mouse. This is where, Robert De Niro's character is just kind of, he doesn't know exactly what's going on yet, but we know that they're sort of on to him. And this is where the LAPD at this point, they have picked up the alias of Michael. So they're kind of watching him, and the whole crew, which I don't, again, you just completed this heist. Now I know that the crew doesn't know the cops are onto them, but you would think that Neil would be smart enough to not go like out to dinner with the entire crew and family after an armed robbery. I just feel like that's not in his DNA to be like, yeah, this is a good idea. Let's all be seen out in public together.
Well, remember they got away clean. There was no heat on them at that moment.
Correct.
At that time, they thought everything was. There was no tails. There was no nothing. At this
other
point,
than Wayne Grow roaming
Wayne
around
Grow.
somewhere.
Yeah.
but he's guilty too. So that's how he slipped Neil's mind. He's not thinking he's trying to get caught.
Yeah.
So this
I
is
don't
one
think
of the
they. I don't think they
few-
know they're being watched. I
No,
don't think.
No,
yeah.
they definitely don't at this point, but it's still like, I just feel like with his expertise and his rules and he's very diligent. Kevin mentioned he's always in a different car for every scene. That obviously comes to his past and history. He's not going back to prison. This is why I think Michael Mann said that this is why he wears just these gray suits. He doesn't want to stand out. He's just an everyman. He's about as common as they come.
You
But
do
knowing
see
that
the.
Wayne Grow got away.
You saw
Right.
the importance of that scene, though, right? You say you didn't understand why they did it. The reason they did that scene of him in the restaurant, he noticed Danny Trejo hugging his girl, Michael Torito giving his wife a ring. He's looking at Chris and his wife, Charlene. They all have somebody. Remember, his whole thing is 30 seconds flat. You got to leave everything behind if you're seeing the heat.
Right.
I think in that moment, seeing everybody, he's like, damn, I'm the only one that can really get away. Can we literally drop everything in 30 seconds to avoid capture?
Right.
I think it hit him in that scene, looking at everybody like, fuck, I don't have that.
And
I
he
don't have
enjoys
that all
that.
night.
He
Yeah.
like it was one of the few times where he's actually smiling
Yeah.
and enjoying. He's happy for them. He understands that he's alone, or what is it? I'm alone.
He's
not
alone.
lonely.
He's not lonely.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of emotion behind that scene. I think you're right.
And you're right in that point. And another line that comes later in the movie is the discipline. He's okay with that because he knows what needs to happen. Maybe these other guys do get picked up and they can't leave so-and-so. He's not going to be that guy. He's gone.
Yeah.
It's pretty.
You ain't finding
pretty out
Neil.
there.
You ain't
Yeah,
finding Neil.
And it comes full circle, and he proves that by the end of the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he breaks a lot of his own rules at the end, which kind of like gets to me a little bit. I'm like, oh yeah, you know what you had to do, and you just chose not to do it. But yeah, so at that dinner scene, that's where the LAPD is like tailed them and started bugging them up, and they sort of know their next score. They have an idea as to what the next score is, and at that point, Neil was the only one, which is weird. Neil was the only one they didn't know because they're like, who's this loner? And like Diaz said, he was by himself, but it's weird because he's been in prison before. So you would think that they'd be able to pull some records and figure it out, but they didn't. They pulled him on everybody else except Neil. This is where we kind of shift into this the next attempted score, which was this the mineral place or the metals or something like that?
Yeah, like precious metals, which is based on an actual heist that the real Neil McCauley did. He broke into a factory that made diamond-tipped drill bits and stuff to steal the diamonds. So it was what they were stealing in the movie was based on, again, the think his name's Chuck Adamson, was the Chicago detective that hunted the real Neil McCauley down, and they were stealing like precious metals or something that, which is, if it's an industrial thing, right? It's not a jewelry store or something. It probably does have shitty security. They're like, who the hell's going to break in here to steal? Oh, wait a minute. We make diamond drill tips.
And this is just,
that's cool that they connected that. I didn't know. That's awesome. And that's what this movie has. It's just
and they noticed about
so
that
real.
because they were tailing Chirito, right? Chirito kept driving around that place.
yeah.
Okay.
They parked out front. They kind of broke in, and they got a couple different sets. You know, Hannah's in the bus with the surveillance, or the truck with surveillance, and you have this other team, which is more just like the local cops versus, I forget what's Hannah's team. The leader is the head of homicide,
robbery, homicide.
Yeah, robbery, homicide.
So it's the two teams, but he has, he takes precedent. He's actually running the show here. Maybe it was just Neil's expertise, or maybe I missed something. They're in there. Chris is in there trying to get into the safe. Neil comes out, steps back into the darkness, and you can only see his face with the night vision. And he rushes back inside and says, "We go, we walk, we walk."
He hit a set. He heard something. He heard a bang.
The guy standing in the surveillance van in the back that was kind of pacing around has a rifle on his back. And at some point he decides to sit down. So he drops down with his back against the side of the truck, and it goes clunk. And then Neil hears it. And then he walks inside.
And I didn't really second guess it. I missed the catalyst that tipped Neil off, but I still bought it. I was like, Neil's expertise, maybe it's too quiet. And he just is like,
it's still that though, because all he hears, it's dark, and all he hears is like something metal hitting the side of a truck across the street.
That's it.
Could have been anything, but he's like, and he probably wasn't sure. He's like, doesn't matter. I hear something I don't understand.
That's it.
We walk.
Yep.
And it was just that great scene too, where Hannah is just, he was so close, but he's telling him, he's like, you got to let him walk. What are we going to get him for? Breaking and entering? They're out in 2 years.
They haven't stolen anything.
Yeah, they didn't steal anything. They didn't kill anybody.
Bullshit misdemeanor. They walk in 6 months or something.
Yeah, it's breaking and entering. They're too, if they're walking away at this point, they're good enough to get away with a breaking and entering charge. Even with their priors, it doesn't matter. They still will figure out a way to get through the system.
And just the way he acted that scene, like you believed he was the guy, and he was disappointed, and the way he just kind of underhand throws the walkie-talkie at the other guy, and he's like, back to work. And it's like Pacino just acts the shit out of this movie.
Oh, he's just insane. I know we'll say it 10 more times, but he's just out of his mind in this movie. This is where we sort of get that crossroads now, where they have a meeting, and this was a lot to take in as a movie. Was there a part that he confirmed that they were being watched? Was this with Nate, I think, was giving him the intel on who was watching him?
So I think what really tipped him off is him and Chris have that conversation, because he's like, they know they're on to us, and that's why they were waiting for us at that gem place. And then Chris kind of tries to talk him down, saying maybe they were just onto the location. They're not onto us. They're onto the location because it had been hit before. And Neil must have been like, nope, they're on to us.
Yeah.
Check
and
your
they have
phones, your car. They have your phone, your car, your wife's car. They got us all.
Assume they have it all.
Yeah. And that's where we have the whole, like, is it worth it discussion? And that's where we get the line, I'm here for the juice. Chris is obviously, everybody has a reason to still pursue this next heist. You have Neil, who really wants to hit one score before they're gone. Chris has this gambling debt he's got to pay off. Michael is just this absolute madman who doesn't care. And Trejo is just the driver. He's just there. He's just chilling. So we have that sort of crossroad discussion where they're like, you have Val Kilmer, who's absolutely just trying to get the most of his time in the sun, where he just has that long pause. His bank is worth the risk. You have De Niro trying to talk Michael out of it. He's like, no, the action is the juice, but we either split here or we take it down. And we kind of get that. All right, we're going for it.
They should have split there.
Again, this is sort of when you start to see De Niro's character break away from his own rules, because he sees the finish line in sight, and he's like, it's so close. Like, we probably shouldn't, but We got to. It's worth the risk. This is where we pick up Alan Marciano. He gets picked up for the LAPD. This is the first time I believe we got shown this character. It just kind of cut right to him. We get the quick little backstory of you're working for us or you're going back and you're getting extradited off of old cigarette smuggling charges from Connecticut or something like that. But they know that there's a connection between him and Chris's wife.
Yeah, you see that that's the scene where
where
Chris ends up, Neil wakes up and finds Chris hung over on his floor. He calls, what's her name, Charlene, I think.
Charlene, yeah.
And says, what's going on? And then he asks Chris, like, are you cheating on her? And he's like, oh, not really. And then he's like, is she cheating on you? And he's like, oh, absolutely not. And so Neil must be saying, okay. So Neil must have followed her because he follows her to the hotel. Yes. And he waits for the guy to come out and he goes in there and that's when he gives her the ultimatum. He's like, you're going to give Chris one more chance. And if he fucks it up, I'll support you. I'll put you up and I'll take care of you. But you are going to give him one more chance. Now clean up and go home. And that's the guy that's leaving the hotel.
Yes.
That the cops then go because now they figure, oh, some leverage. Like Chris's wife is with this guy and we've got some old wonky charge about not paying tax on cigarettes that we can use to leverage them, and that's how they're going to get into the.
And we can get from Alan to Charlene to Chris,
right?
But again, Pacino just steps up to the plate and goes 4 for 4 in this scene. He hits us with the who? What are you, a fucking owl? And then we have the whole because she's got a great ass, and then he's just going crazy. But that's where we start to see that cat and mouse game. Slowly. They're closing in on one another. I believe before this scene too, this is where I kind of shifted a little bit here, but I think at this point we start to see Neil and Edie. Edie is the female character. She works at the bookstore that she saw Neil. They're at a bar and she tries to talk to him and Neil just brushes her off, which goes to prove the point that Diaz was making even earlier, where he is the loner. He's not alone, but he's the loner. And she's trying to get in a conversation.
He doesn't want attachments.
He wants nothing to do with this poor girl. Come on, lady, what are you asking me what I'm reading for? And he kind of feels bad. He's like, oh, sorry, I'm a salesman. I sell minerals or rocks or something like that. So we start to see the groundwork be laid in a subplot of the love life. And we know that at the end, we know where this is going, right? Like we know that he's going to have to make that choice, which he's always talked about. You have 30 seconds flat to get out, no attachments. And you can see that this is going to create some sort of conflict. And when I saw this, I'm also too like, why is Edie even pursue him past that first reaction? She's just like trying to make nice conversation. He's just a fucking asshole. Why? And then you're just like, oh, maybe I'll still go with him and go to his apartment later tonight and hook up, and that would just be gone. Like, why? I mean, she's got to be the loneliest person in the world.
The counter that they're sitting at is actually the Broadway Deli, and it's where Michael Mann and Art Linson, the producer, would meet to discuss the script and the casting, and it's where they were sitting when they decided to try to get De Niro and Pacino, and that's the same place where they were sitting.
I love stuff like that. It's awesome.
And this brings us on that deli thing. The other thing is that none of this movie was filmed in a soundstage. It was all on location.
Oh, yes.
And at the time, I don't know if it still stands, but at the time, it was the largest amount of shooting locations for any film to date. They shot at almost 100 different locations in LA.
Yeah. They were saying that they had to film every weekend. They only had the weekends to film the city.
This kind of leads us to might be one of my favorite scenes, because you don't really know what's going on until the end, but you got the whole crew in this junkyard. At this point, they know they're being tailed, but they don't make a point of it. So it kind of confuses you as a watcher. And they're talking, we're going to go here. Here's the exit. This is the exit. Good to go. All right, well, we'll see you guys later. And then they all split. And at this point, you see Hannah and all them spying on him with this, the big old sound check or whatever. They're on a satellite gun and stuff like that. And they rush down there. They go to there and they're like, what are these guys looking at? There's a scrapyard. There's an oil refinery. I don't get what they're talking about. They're clearly, they know what they're doing. What could they possibly be doing over here? And that's the aha moment. It clicks. The light bulb goes off for Hannah. It's like, you want to know what they're looking at? They're like, yeah, you want to know? I got an idea what they're looking at. They're looking at us, the LAPD. We just got made. And then it cuts out to De Niro with the binoculars.
He starts off being a little more sarcastic. Maybe they're stealing hubcaps.
Yeah. These guys something or they something. Everybody else hasn't caught on yet. And again, this goes to the point of Hannah is like, he's picking stuff up before everybody else is. There's a reason why he's leading this. He's like, we just got made. Yeah. Okay, motherfucker. And he's looking around trying to find them. And
I got an idea of what they're looking at. You want to know what they're looking at?
What?
I mean, is this guy something or is he something? This crew is good. You know what they're looking at?
What?
Us. The LAPD. The police department. We just got made.
that's when like it hits you and you're like, wow, okay, they're chasing them just as much as they're being chased.
And that's speaks again to the story is just so robust here. The whole, they have the appreciation for each other's craft. And it's like, okay, I'm the good guy, you're the bad guy, which is the coffee shop scene that you'll talk about.
You got me, I got you.
But they have this like almost admiration for each other for their own side of the coin.
Nick, I have a fact for you though. You know we like cameras. So it's actually not, he's not using binoculars. He's actually using a Nikon on a tripod, and he has a 1300 millimeter Questar reflector lens.
Jeez.
1300 millimeter lens.
Which is crazy because I'd love to see the time frame of like how long did they split from the scene? How long did he have to get up there? How long did it take the cops to get down there? Because it's an instant thing. Obviously, you're not going to show them driving around and stuff like that. But like this was a very big, well thought out setup scene. And like you mentioned, they admire each other because they're just as good as what they do as the other. It's a complete, clash of the titans. And if you put De Niro as the cop, he's going to be doing all the same tactics that Hannah's doing. If Hannah was the roles reversed, he'd be doing the same shit that De Niro's doing. So it's really just like the web of storytelling and layers of this story is just this is a action heist lasagna movie.
It just doesn't stop.
Yeah, no. This is where we're kind of caught in the middle now, and we know the professional aspect of these two. We sort of dive into the personal lives of the two now, and I kind of have a little segment on that because we start to see up to this point, we haven't really seen Hannah's personal life. We've gotten little glimpses of it, but this kind of dives into different characters, and we get more in depth on them. This is where a weird sub story that Waingro is actually a Nazi serial killer, which was kind of interesting. Because this is where he had killed the prostitute, and when he was shirtless in there, you can see the swastika tattoo on his chest, which I think I saw somewhere. Michael Mann, when he was interviewing characters in prisons, I think that he had based Waingro off of a person actually called Waingro, and he had like the swastika tattoo and stuff like that, and that's why he put it there. And it doesn't have anything to do with the story, but he put it there. And I think after they had finished, or before they finished filming, that person was killed in prison.
Oh,
there's a lot of stuff in that backstory that I don't really remember, but I think that was the gist of it. But we start to see Hanna out to dinner with his wife and other members of the LAPD, and they kind of get home from dinner, and you can see the stress is encompassing their marriage. He's not home. He's out chasing Bob De Niro. And then I'm sure he was chasing another Bob De Niro before then. And then that's why he's promoted. We learned that this is his third marriage and it's clearly failing. This is a good little conversation piece between the two. We got Hanna say another great line. He's just like, I told you when we hooked up, baby, you'd have to share me. And it's just like, I mean, you didn't have to go for it in this scene, but you still did. And we start to see the real gruesomeness that he deals with. He's like, oh, you're right. I should come home and say, guess what, honey? I walked into a house today where this junkie asshole microwaved his baby because it was crying too loud. Is that what you want me to share? It's like, no, there's some stuff I can't tell you. And she's really putting the pressure on him. This marriage is just being held on by absolute, duct tape at this point. This is where we get to see, like, this is probably going to end well. And we kind of find out this information just as Neil figures out this information, because he's passing the pictures along to Nate and being like, well, this is why the extra heat. This guy's on his third marriage. He's a Boy Scout. He is just, why do you think he's been divorced?
He lives for this.
Why do you think he's been divorced 3 times? Because he's out doing his job like nobody else is doing it. And this cuts,
and he's taking down some big crews.
Yeah. So now De Niro knows pretty much about Hanna what Hanna knows about De Niro. They're kind of on equal playing fields at this point. This is where I think the most famous scene from this movie comes into play. Victor Hanna is tailing them. He uses a helicopter to catch up to Neil and goes up to us by the car. He's just taps on, hey, let's go grab a cup of coffee. And this is the diner scene.
That's so badass.
Absolute masterclass.
That whole chopper, you don't even know what's happening, right? You're like, oh, chopper, who are they chasing? What? And then, like, boom, Bobby just driving, like, whoa, they're gonna get him. He's laughing, looking back.
Yeah,
Guys,
sure. Let's go get a coffee. Sure, I'll follow you.
That was,
and that just threw me off a little bit too. Like, did he know that Victor was tailing him, and he was like waiting for him to come one-on-one, or was he actually caught off guard? The fact that he found him, like, or was he laying a trap again to have this conversation because he can't get picked up on anything? They got nothing on him to this point.
I think so. I think, like, once he knows that Nate, when Nate lets him know who he is, like, Nate could probably just drop help him plan something. So, like, hey, have him chase me and we'll talk.
But I mean, this diner scene, the lines I have of dialogue is just, there isn't anything that misses. You have De Niro with the, do you see me doing thrill-seeking liquor store holdups? Do I have a Born to Lose tattoo on my chest? Because he's talking about, he's like, well, do you want to go back?
I ain't never going back.
Yep. They get the absolute back and forth of a tennis match. He's like, I do what I do best. I take scores. You do what you best. You stop guys like me. It's like, so you never wanted a regular type life? The fuck is that? Barbecues and ball games? It's just, and then that's where we first hear the line where Neil says, a guy told me one time, don't let yourself get too attached to anything you are not willing to walk out on in 30 seconds flat if you feel the heat around the corner. And that's just words to live by. And there's very few times movies actually use the name of a movie in dialogue and have it feel right. This felt right. This felt like this movie couldn't be named anything else after this. It was just, it's the whole basis of this movie is just being right up there to the cusp of things before it does,
And it's there a couple times too. Like he doesn't say just once, right? Like, this is his MO. I mean, this is his.
Yeah, he has a lot of things. And this is where it really hit me. This line, this back and forth between the two, where Neil's talking about his dream and how he's drowning and he's got to wake himself up. And he goes, what's that about? And he says, it's about having enough time. And this movie, for me, at that point, I was like, wow, this movie is all based on time. This is, doing hard time, having time on the heists, 30 seconds flat, leaving the corner. This is at the end of the movie when he's like, you have time, I'll make time. This thing is such a time-based movie where it's just like an absolute pressure cooker. Because even Hanna references time too, where he's like, these guys got, 12 hours or they're gone. They're out. We don't have any more time. They're gone. We lost them. It's such a good concept to time, to tie time into this, because it really, like you said, it's a 2 hour and 50-minute movie. It doesn't really feel that way because it's so on the clock. Just every scene is just a stopwatch is going, and they got to get in. They got to get out. If they feel the heat, they got to get out quick. It's all time, which is funny that's in LA, because if they had to get out of LA, there's no way they're getting out in 30 seconds. It's just impossible. The end of this conversation is what really got me. This diner scene where, he's talking about, he's like, well, what if I come around the corner and you see me? You got to take me down. I was like, well, there's a flip side to that coin. What if you do got me boxed in and I got to put you down? Because no matter what, I am not going back. Now, we've been face to face, but I will not hesitate, not for a second. And again, tying into time, he just has that. And that's where the conversation sort of ends. And just, if you watch any scene in this movie, watch that scene.
Yeah.
That is the definition of this movie. That is the thesis. That is the whole center. This is the nucleus of the movie right here. And it's just an absolute masterclass. This is why the two of these guys are absolute, icons of the industry. We go from that. We learn quickly that every single person in the crew, they lost their tail. And he starts losing. I had coffee with him a half an hour ago. It's like he flew into LA. There's a no-fly zone, or he went into LAX. There's a no-fly zone, and
we lost the car.
This is where
it's like they lost all their tails, and they're like, yes, exactly at 9:00 they all lost their tails.
Yeah, so something's happening. This is where we get into really our second to last chapter, which I just called Bullets and Blood, the showdown. This is the heist. This is the one that they were really like amping up for. This is, they had that face-to-face finally. They know that each one has its own number, but it's going to come down to a split-second decision. Trejo can't lose his tail. They enlist the help of Don, who is this line cook that Bob recognizes from prison. I keep saying Bob, but it's Neil. I just keep referring to him as Bob, like I know the guy. But they bring him in to drive out. And one little point that I wanted to add during this scene: never treat your recently released from prison line cooks like shit,
dude.
Because this is what they'll do. This is what they'll do.
Yeah,
I have hired many when I was in the kitchen world. I had some of my best people coming out of prison. They don't want to go back. They work really hard, and just treat them nice. That's it. That's all you got to do. I had one of my best hot preppers got out of federal prison. Dude made mashed potatoes like nobody's business. But we have the bank robbery scene. This is, again, talking about time, talking about in and out. You have Robert De Niro's character, Neil. He sets the tone. We want to hurt no one. We're here for the bank's money, not your money. Your money's insured by the federal government. You're not going to lose a dime. If anyone's going to be sick or if anybody has heart problems, get along the wall. So he's like a nice bad guy. He doesn't want to. There's a difference between obviously an armed robbery, but an armed robbery plus homicide. Like that's an absolute worst case scenario. He doesn't want to do that.
He's not nervous.
No.
He just knows what needs to happen. He's calm, cool, collected. Hey, stay organized.
But this all goes wrong. Somebody tipped them off. We don't know who yet, but somebody tipped them off, and Hanna's crew is running towards them. They're a little bit behind the ball because they didn't get the info until probably during. But like I said, they're in and out. They grab the bags, and this whole LA shootout happens because Val Kilmer can't walk to the fucking car in time. Because I don't know how long this scene was supposed to be, but you have Pacino running down the street, sprinting, cuts to Val Kilmer slowly walking. Because you don't want to cause a scene. I get it. But then it cuts to Pacino running. Oh, just get in the goddamn car. But this turns into an absolute bloodbath, a monster shootout scene. They're running through the streets. They're firing. And I think we mentioned earlier the sounds of this movie. They were shooting, I believe, live ammunition.
Yeah.
They had microphones placed all through the set. They didn't want to dub in audio after the fact. So that's why it sounds so just intense, in your face, just absolute masterclass. And I think I read somewhere too that the way Val Kilmer's character and Robert De Niro's character was reloading their guns was used in military courses following, showing how to properly suppress fire and reload while in a firefight. I don't know if anybody else.
Yeah, so it wasn't obviously wasn't live ammunition, but it was the full charge. It was the full charged blanks, so that it made the right sound, right? And then he said that in post production, they took a pass at adding all the gunshots in post-production like they do in most movies, and he didn't like it. He went back to the microphones that he had put out at all the locations. And the video clip wasn't necessarily used for training. It was used at Paris Island for the Marine crew training. And what they would show the recruits is, and weapons training, is they would show that scene, and they would say, if you can't load and fire a weapon as fast as an actor, you have no business being on my island. So they'd use it as a
Wow.
And they were doing some pretty proficient stuff there. The details in there, like when they were like doing bounding and overwatching, when the two of them were moving down the street and stuff, was somebody knew what they were doing. He's firing one way, firing the other way. Obviously, the last round, drops the magazine in, forward assist, and starts firing again. So that the clip is shown, and the point they're making is, if that actor can do it right, you better be able to do it right.
And Michael Mann was saying that the correlation of actors and hand-eye coordination is just something that's astounding. They were taking, obviously, weapons classes and stuff like that. And even Michael Mann was like, I think De Niro could probably shoot as well as the LAPD cops at the point of shooting this movie because of how intense he took the training and how in-depth they got. They would go and for the first week of these courses, they wouldn't shoot. They would just learn how to break down guns and clean guns and set them back up. And I'm sure very similar to normal military training, you want to learn the basics of the weapon before you just pick it up to start shooting. You need to know how to build this thing and replace pieces and stuff like that.
What they also did was they, at the weapons range they were using, which I think belonged to the sheriff's department, but they laid out that whole street scene with like plywood cutouts, what they call flats, of all the vehicles and the poles and everything. And the actors shot their parts on the range with live ammo so many times that by the time they got to do the shootout in the street, like it wasn't like they didn't have to like imagine what would it be like if this was like, they had done it so many times with a live weapon with live ammo. Again,
this is absolute.
The preparation was like off the charts for what they did for all these characters.
It's crazy. So throughout this scene, there's a couple of moments. Chris gets shot. De Niro, again, this is where we start to see his character sort of break his rules. He went back to grab Chris. You know, at this point, it's kind of, he's viewing it as no man left behind. What he really should be doing it is just get out.
Walk away.
Every man for
30
themselves.
seconds.
Grab your bag. You have your bag. Sorry, Chris. Sorry. Got to go. We see what is like, this is the juxtaposition of this movie, right? Where we obviously you don't want to be cheering for the crew, but when Michael is running, just firing bullets and picks up the little girl as like a shield, you're like, it's a real smart move there. Yeah, I see what you did. That's pretty smart right there. And you really shouldn't be thinking that because you're like, oh, this is a bad guy. You put this little young girl in danger, but you're like, damn, that's a great move. I gotta, know, if for whatever reason I'm ever in this situation, I gotta find a little meat shield for me and make sure that no one's firing at me. But he gets taken out. You got Hanna, who's got like the hot shot. He catches him from behind, takes him down, and the crew is just kind of in shambles at this point. Everyone splits. Neil has Chris, brings Chris to Jeremy Piven, who's making a cameo as this pretty much backwards cop, or not backwards cop, but backwards doctor who's just piecing them together. Great little scene with Piven. Not sure why or how he got this part, but pretty cool that he got to share the stage with De Niro. Yeah. This next chapter, the final chapter, is sort of the resolution. This one is a pretty beefy chapter, but I kind of summed it up pretty quickly, where we start to see this like tangled web of crime, and we figured out how everything came to be in this scene. And I think I have it. I think I have it untangled for us. So Trejo ratted to Waingro because Waingro took Anna. Waingro is helping Van Zant. So Waingro took the information from Trejo, which is why he couldn't do it. He beat him to death. He killed his girlfriend, wife, whatever she was. Waingro takes the information and presents it to Van Zant. Van Zant is still pissed off at that crew for everything they tried to do, for making him look dumb, for robbing him. And Van Zant rats to the LAPD to get back at Neil to get their crew off the street. That's how I saw it. Am I missing something? That's, I think, the correct order of things of how this showdown came to be and how they got the tip off.
I think so.
So Waingro got the time when they were getting the heist because he went to
Trejo
and got it out of him.
Yeah, and you could see in a later scene Trejo is.
Well, I think Waingro
didn't.
Dead. Yeah, I mean Waingro walks into that Van Zant's office, right?
Yeah,
and says, "I can help you." And how do you know? And then, of course, he exaggerates. Oh, I was on his crew. I did some big scores with them or something. Like, no, I was on one job and they tried to kill me and put me in the trunk.
Yeah. So Waingro went to Trejo, got the information, brought the information back to Van Zant. Van Zant relayed the information to the LAPD, and that's what kind of caused all this chaos. At this point, this is where Neil is completely breaking all his rules because he goes back for Edie, who is now all the information's out there on the TV. These are the people. This is the shootout. These are the people to look out for. If Twitter was a thing back then, this thing, all their faces would be plastered across this platform.
It's very lonely, man.
And she's still okay with it. She's like, "Oh wait, so you're not a salesman?" Like, "No, bitch. I just shot up LA and we have to go to Tahiti or whatever."
Are you ready to go? Are you ready to go?
Yeah. So he's already breaking his rules. He's going back to Edie and getting her out of there. He brings Chris to Nate to help him get sorted out and get squared up. He tells him, Nate's going to pick you up. After that, you got to get out of here. And Chris, we see it. He's obviously too held up on Christine because that's going to draw him back. And during this time where somehow Edie is convinced to go with De Niro still, he breaks more rules. He finds Van Zant and kills him. And he was trying to get the information for Waingro. At this point, Hanna has picked up all this. He's like, I got the information that Van Zant just got killed. The only other person that's out there is Waingro. We know where Waingro is. Go set people up at the apartment or the hotel that he's staying. He's staying under the name Jameson, and put surveillance on him.
Oh, right. They leak it to tell all the probation officers, any of your snitches.
Tell everybody that Waingro's at this apartment because we know it will get back to him, to Neil somehow. And there's a good chance, because Van Zant's dead, there's a good chance that Neil is going to go for Waingro. So this is our last chance to really scoop him up before he's gone. And that's what kind of leads to this final pursuit where Robert De Niro's character pulls up the car. He parks there and Edie's just like, "Yeah, sure. That's fine. I'll wait in the car. I got you." He goes in, takes the uniform, pulls the fire alarm, knocks on the door, kicks it in, and just fires into his chest, kills him, and he gets back out.
Look, why don't we just talk about this a bit, huh, brother? Look at me. Look at me.
Now, when he's coming back out, he can sort of see that Hannah's moving towards him and he's looking to Edie. Now, this was my part where I was kind of questioning it. He sees Edie, he sees Hanna, and he decides to bounce without getting in the car. I feel like he could have gotten in the car and escaped. I wasn't sure if he, in that time, was realizing he broke his rules and he needs to get out now and didn't want to bring her along. Or did he, in my mind, did he think that she contacted Hanna and got him there that quick? Because he doesn't know how. So I'm curious what you guys think. Did you guys think either of those two, or did you just think he's coming to the realization that 30 seconds he's out, he's got to go?
Yeah, I think that's what brought it.
He cares for her so much, and he needs to get out. If he goes in that car, she's automatically accomplice. He got to get out, but he's not only getting himself out, he's getting her out at the same time. She's not an accomplice at that point. He left.
It's true. I when I first saw it, I was like, I think he thinks that she ratted him out and got Hanna there.
I didn't think
quick.
that. I thought it was him coming full circle and delivering on his, because first let the story unwind. You realize that he was going to be attached for like maybe the first time in a while, and that you think they're both going, and then they hit you with it. Like, no, this dude is walking away in 30 seconds and leaving her sitting
That's like
there.
you said. Yep.
So this kind of leads, I forget where it jumps back and forth, but we do get a little closure on the Chris character, which I thought was hilarious. He cuts his hair and he tries to go visit Christine or Charlene, who is obviously being held up by the cops now. And this is a little kind of behind the scenes thing too, that I didn't fully pick up, but now that I realize it, I was like, oh, super smart to add this, because it was some backstory that got ditched. But he gets out of his car and he's looking up at her, and she's looking down on him, and she does this little hand gesture, like the little hand swiping across. That is you're supposed to know that Chris lost all his money gambling. He was a big blackjack guy. So that was the blackjack symbol of like stay or something like that, or
no more bets, no more bets,
no more. That's his cue
off.
that the cops are up there watching.
It's not him. It's not Chris.
And he just turns to the people playing basketball and asks them if there's anywhere to get bread or rent or something like that. I don't know. I heard bread, but the tagline says rent.
I know. Hey, but I think basketball too. You know anybody that's renting an apartment?
Yeah. And I think they answered with something like a bakery is down there. So like I don't know if it was supposed to be rent, or do you have a place to go buy bread? I don't know. But that brings us to this conclusion of this whole chase scene between De Niro and Pacino on the LAX like tarmac, running down. It's a clear showdown. You got the planes flying overhead. They're playing, cat and mouse right there. You think De Niro's got a clean shot on him. The plane flies over and Pacino sees the shadow, quickly turns and fires and shoots at him. We kind of learned that it was either this way or he was escaping, because we get the line from De Niro to end this thing. I told you I was never going back. So he kind of knew the whole time that it's going to end with either him escaping and having all this money, or he was going out, because he's not going back to prison. The one little weird part was like the complete, conclusion where they were like holding hands. It was just like the admiration between the two is pretty recognizable now.
Yeah.
But that sort of brings us to the end of Heat. So this obviously was a very well acclaimed movie. I'm very curious to see what the reviews are on this, and if there is somebody out there willing to put a bad review of Heat online and have it traced back to them. I'm sure there's not. I mean, I'm sure if we dug deep enough, there's probably some random 1-star review out there, but I'm curious what the Rotten Tomato meter is and how this thing is kind of perceived, if there's anything good out there.
I'll be honest, I gave up on looking for a bad review, but Tomato meter, we have this one sitting at 83%. So actually I thought a little lower. I thought it would be a little higher than that.
I thought it'd be in the 90s.
Yeah, for sure. The audience score though is 94.
Okay.
So that I see for sure. I mean, I'll give it easily 95, 96. It's a brilliant movie. I have something to share. It's in the pantheon of crime epics. Heat stands tall as still an inferno of cinematic brilliance. Michael Mann orchestrates a symphony of tension and intensity, casting Pacino and De Niro, and a duel of the titans that ignites the screen with raw emotion. The sprawling Los Angeles backdrop becomes a character itself in a gritty urban jungle where morality blurs, and the line between cop and criminal fades to obscurity. The heist sequence are nothing short of masterful. Each pulse-pounding moment meticulously crafted with precision that leaves you breathless. Pacino's frenetic energy clashes beautifully with De Niro's cool, calculated demeanor, creating a mesmerizing dynamic that crackles with electricity.
That's
all the words.
Kind of saying the praises of that. So let's get into our segments real quick. We have a couple little segments before we get into the time machine. So let's stack it up. Diaz, what are we stacking this up with? What part of this movie are we stacking up?
2 heist movies. The first one, I think, is just basically like a redid version of this one, The Town. Ben Affleck and was it John? It was John Hamm in that, right? If I remember correctly. No, it wasn't John Hamm. It was
Jeremy Renner.
There we go. Well,
Oh yeah, John Hamm was in it. He was the FBI
that was
agent.
he was the FBI agent.
Yeah.
Them two going back at it was like Hanna and De Niro. They just to me it was like basically it inspired everything from the town. How would you stack it up? Could Hamm find De Niro, or could De Niro, if De Niro would have stuck to his guns, would he got away? Would he have gotten away like Ben Affleck did in the town? How would they stack up? What crew is better? You got a heist right now, Kev. You taking De Niro's leadership or Ben Affleck's leadership from the town?
No, I think the problem with the town is that character that Jeremy Renner played was a loose cannon, like less disciplined than even Chris had. I mean, if you remember the scene where he goes and he's like, you got to come with me. You can't ask me why. You can't ever say we did it, but we're going to hurt people. And they go to that apartment where the Dominicans are.
Yeah.
And they just give him a good beat down. And then at the end, he like pulls out the gun and shoots the guy's kneecaps off, pulls the mask off, shows him his face. I'm like, not disciplined enough to pull off a heist. You don't want that.
He's like, you see me? I see you too.
Yeah,
that's a great line right there in itself. You see me?
I think for that reason, I think De Niro's crew has more discipline probably.
So you'll take De Niro's crew over the crew from the town?
That would be like if they let Waingro stay in their crew. Like that's like the wild card where like De Niro was smart enough to be like, this guy's an absolute liability. He's got to go.
But then again, De Niro wasn't smart enough to get out. Affleck was. Affleck got away.
Facts.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough too because it's two different eras, right? How would De Niro's crew deal with the technology of today? Being able to trace a little bit better. Mobile phones are easier to track, stuff like that. I do think I would go with De Niro's crew, though. I think he just his ability to assess situations where it rivals the head of the armed robbery police detective in LA. The fact that he goes toe to toe with him, it's tough to not maybe give the edge to him. And while we did talk, he did sort of break his rules. I think if there was a second chance at this thing, he would have gotten out of there because he knows that he shouldn't have got. If Edie wasn't in the picture, he's gone. That was his one downfall is that
or if he didn't go back for Waingro, him and Edie
yeah.
would have probably been on their way, right?
What else? Anybody else think on this?
Jimmy, what do you think? You want to be a part of Affleck's crew or De Niro's crew?
Definitely De Niro's crew. They seem a lot more tactically proficient. I'd like to see how they would do with today. I think they'd probably use burner phones like you see all the time in like Breaking Bad. I think they would have a whole bunch of burner phones. Especially with the payphone not being around anymore. But no, we were fortunate because I think this is, the 90s had two of the greatest heist movies of all time in Point Break. So I think we were extremely fortunate. I think the difference between Bodie and Neil is that Bodie always wouldn't break his rules. He always, he was always on the run. He wanted that endless summer. Yeah. And
kind of a similar ending. Like he's like, I'm not going. I'm not going in. You're not taking me in, right?
That was like Renner's character in the town too. He didn't want to go back.
At least Bodie didn't really have. Bodie, I think, was okay with having no attachments. Like, he was just. He really was. He was just surfing. He was just, he was just an extreme sport, like an extreme athlete. Skydiving, surfing.
The action is the
good
juice.
Point. So Neil and his crew were in it for the heist. Brody, that crew weren't in it really for the heist. Maybe they were because they said they were adrenaline.
The endless summer.
But they just needed to fund their summer, right?
Yeah, the endless summer, which is why they would, the only time Bodie really broke his own rules when they went for the vault, because that was their big thing. They never went for the vault.
Okay, so we all talking about their flaws because Affleck made a mistake too. He got away, but he made mistakes. Neil made mistakes. Bodie made a mistake. Let's do another heist movie. We got all these great cops, all these great anti-heroes or whatever, or criminals. Fast Five. We all love the Fast Five series. So you got Pacino, You have what was it? Johnny Utah was Reeves' character. He was the cop, right? In Point Break.
Yeah.
Johnny Utah, Hannah. I don't know John Hamm's character's name from the town or the fucking Rock.
Oh, you gotta go The Rock.
Who's
Gotta
the
go The
best-
Rock.
Who's the best cop out of the four? I still might say
Daddy's got to go to work. He just
I would
flexes
actually-
and busts out of
I
his
still might
cast.
say Hannah. I still might say Hannah.
I have a dark horse. I would say Gary Busey. Gary Busey in Point Break knew they were, or his theory was that they're surfers. That's how,
Yep.
and everyone, the FBI kind of laughed at it. He kind of became a pariah for that.
Oh, they
Gary
they
Busey-
did a test and got like what the sex wax, which is what they call the wax they use on their boards.
Right.
And like he figured it out. And he's like, they're surfers, and they thought he was crazy. Like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, hot shot. You want to nail the bank robbers and be a big hero?
Definitely.
Definitely. Then here it is. The ex-presidents are surfers.
Gary Busey, I think, was the unsung hero out of all of them. I mean, he knew, he kind of put it together that, oh, these guys are surfers. That's why,
Yeah, The Rock was absolute just brute force. You didn't really see the smarts of The Rock in Fast series, but I think I don't know,
Switch
man. It's
him.
hard to go against Hannah.
Switch him. Can Hannah stop the Fast Five crew? Could
Oh,
Ham,
no,
like,
you
These are
can't
the
stop
guys
the
that
family.
stole the vault and dragged it down the street, right?
Yeah, that's the
yeah.
one.
With
was
cars.
Was Hannah stopping that? Was Ham
I don't know.
stopping?
If
I don't
you're
think
gonna
Niro,
if you're gonna steal a vault and you need to tow something heavy, I mean, you wouldn't get a big truck or a tow truck or an armored truck. You'd do 2 sports cars, right?
Yeah,
Why?
of course.
Oh, because you're trying to make a Fast and Furious movie where they steal something, so we have to use cars. And then let's be discreet about it. We'll wipe out all the buildings as we take corners with this giant.
well, I think
space car.
I think Hannah's biggest talent his ability to put himself in the criminal shoes, which was a way to stay, I guess, on pace with Neil and his crew, because none of the other, Johnny or Gary, Johnny infiltrates by becoming like a certain, but like like De Niro and their crew was able to stay one step ahead, but if it wasn't for Pacino putting himself in the criminal like what would he do? I think they would have never had any opportunity to.
And he's a real boots on the ground kind of guy. I mean, he knows the criminals. He's not. I don't call him. He's not a dirty cop because he's not out making trades and wheeling and dealing. But he knows the right bad guys to talk to.
Okay, so would Pacino catch?
Well, he's
all
also
four
been a
of these
cop
two?
for years, though. His experience is, he's seen it all.
I think he shuts down the Toretto family.
You think he got him? What about Affleck and the boys?
I think he's got them. I really do feel like Hannah just
Hannah got 'em
knows
all?
the right people. I think if he's in that movie in those settings, he knows the right people to talk to, and he can find the underbelly of them.
I actually might have to agree with you. I think
it's
Hannah,
He's got
Hannah
the
would
best
get 'em all.
one-liners.
Yeah, and he's just screaming at everybody. You can't
Dude,
beat that.
imagine him yelling at Toretto. What do you mean it's all about family? What fucking family is this?
Don't waste my motherfucking family. So let's get into our next little segment. Stop it. We are each going to go around the horn and give you one good scene, one bad scene, and one ugly scene. What didn't hold up? And this is tough because there's not a lot of bad scenes, but I found some stuff that I I could have probably done without. But let's start with the good. Let's just go from the top of the screen and we'll work our way around. So, Kevin, what's the one scene that when you see this movie, you have to stop it, rewind it, or as soon as you see this movie on the screen, you're in. You're watching this movie.
Yeah, obviously there's the big iconic scenes, but I think one of the favorite scenes for me is the drive-in scene where at first it's like, oh, send one guy. You think maybe they're both there alone. And even more specifically in the drive-in scene, you got Val Kilmer up on the roof who spots him. De Niro backs up and crushes the guy, and then Val Kilmer jumps up with the rifle and he's taking shots at the guy. And the pickup truck, not to mention that, De Niro's in the car shooting through the front windshield as he's going towards him. But then the truck does kind of get away and he's out. He's going. He's out the gate. He's out the gate. And then Sizemore comes around the gate with the shotgun. It's like, oh, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
like
Gets
You
that
got
poor
it.
bastard. Jimmy, what's your number one good scene from this?
Oh, it's got to be, what this movie was really original. It's almost like a heavyweight fight, finally the showdown between Pacino and De Niro when they're sitting in the diner face to face, is there any, God, the tension, edge of your seat stuff. It's not, it's not even, it doesn't even have to be action. It's just finally they're meeting up face to face for the first time, two icons. How can you get any better than that?
We're sitting here, you and I, like a couple of regular fellas. You do what you do, I do what I gotta do. And now that we've been face to face, if I'm there and I gotta put you away, I won't like it. But I'll tell you, if it's between you and some poor bastard whose wife you're gonna turn into a widow, brother, you are going down.
Yeah. Diaz, what's your number one scene from this thing?
The shipyard scene, because you got to see they were both smart. The cops were smart in that situation, watching them going, okay, trying to get into their shoes and go, they were looking this way, they were looking that way. What were they looking at? That scene of them trying to figure that out and then figuring out, fuck, they were looking at us. He's good. This guy's good.
Okay. Ha! Okay, motherfucker.
That scene was awesome to me.
Makes the movie.
To see awesome. Just to see that these guys are they both know what the fuck they're doing. This is gonna be. It made me go, oh shit, who's gonna win this? And are they getting away? It's
every single time you thought one character had the leg up, the other one would just top it, top it. It was so clean. Sil, what's your one good scene from this?
It was so good.
One.
So many. I mentioned before that I love the sit down in a restaurant. That's one of probably the best. But to hold up to the name of the segment, and actually a scene that I stopped and I rewatched because I loved it and it was so funny to me when Bobby sneaks up on Vincent's mansion and he's down by the garden. This motherfucker grabs a chair, dude, and just fucking boom.
Slow motion, just
he's just watching TV, fucking Monday Night Football, and just a chair flies through your window, dude. You lose your mind.
Yeah. Where is he? I don't know. Pop, pop, pop.
Pop, pop, pop.
Done. Right to the chest. See you later.
Waingro, where is he? Where is he?
How the hell would I know?
Watch it again. It's so funny because I just imagine you're just watching
TV.
Yeah, you're just chilling. A fucking chair comes flying through your window. You're in a bathrobe. You're like, oh, dude. I legit paused and I was like, hold on. Just watch it again.
Let's hit rewind on this.
So good, man.
Yeah, I don't know. My good scenes, I think you took my first top three. So I let's just start it off with right from the beginning. That initial armed robbery from the car where you don't, at this point, you don't really know what's up. And they come out with the hockey masks, just such a good image right there. Well, not good, but such an iconic image. And, they hit the thing, they get in, they grab their stuff. And then you're like, all right, they're out of here. And they're like, oh, no, wait. They're going to just absolutely kill all these guys. They just wasted 3 guys right here.
You want to fuck with me?
That's how you start the movie. All right, then. Okay, I know we're in for a pretty wild ride.
And it's true because the first scene when the credits are rolling, it's in a hospital. You get a main character. Is he an EMT? You don't even know. He's just walking in, going to. You're like, okay, character introduction, and then you go to this surfer guy, He like, I don't know what he's trying to do. He's trying to build a house. He's just buying things in the shop. You know, Kilmer. He's from Arizona, and then the cop. You know, Hanna in bed with his wife. Like it's you don't know, and then right after you're like, whoa, heist, boom, mask, gunshots, killing. You're like, whoa,
yeah,
it's good.
So let's get into our bad scene. If you had to pick something bad, like a bad moment or a bad scene or just something that didn't sit right with you, what would that be? So Kevin, let's head back up to you. And what's your one bad scene or a nitpick or something that you have with this movie?
Well, it's
tough, but
it's a bad scene, but it's not like oh, I should take it out. And so it's really probably not really bad scene in the sense of what we're really looking for here. But when he finds his stepdaughter or his whatever in the bathtub, like I'm like, oh man, with all that's going on,
now he has to deal with
he
this
didn't
shit.
need it, and me as a viewer didn't need that. Again, I wouldn't say like, oh, it didn't work or it's got to come out. I'm labeling it as the bad scene, as the one that like just oh man, I could have done without that one. Please.
Yeah,
that's fair.
He's got enough on his plate, and this guy, you gotta pile this shit on there too. Jimmy, what's your one bad scene or moment or something that stuck out?
Kind of like Kev, you know, there's not really too much to choose from, but it's, I'd probably have to say Waingro and the prostitute. Like that's
good point.
That's just kind of a bizarre scene in itself.
But that does come with one of, I don't want to say one of my favorite lines because there's just so many lines in this, but what was it? Is like, you're meeting the Grim Reaper or something like that. It's like, oh, cool line. I like that line. Or you're about to meet the Grim Reaper, or you're meeting death or something like that.
Yeah, and even she had some weird ones too.
Yeah. Oh, you're
my rodeo rider or something.
Yeah.
Rodeo rider. Yeah.
Like,
just like that clear fake prostitute talk is like,
yeah,
oh no,
like,
baby,
I mean,
you were a great ride.
And that's pretty much precisely why the scene is just like, like it's just bad dialogue between the two. Like it's just like that classic 90s bad dialogue.
It's a little suspect compared to everything else in this movie. Diaz, what's the one bad if you had to choose something?
I love Al Pacino because one of my favorite lines from the movie is, "I'm not your cuz, you motherfucker, you rat motherfucker." But that scene, you don't walk in on your snitches in a club and blow up your spot that they're fucking snitches. These guys are in the middle of the club doing their thing, surrounded by bitches, surrounded by people that work for them. They're doing illegal shit in the club. You're gonna walk right in and literally show off to the world that these are your snitches.
Yeah,
you don't do that.
I never thought of it that way, but that's a great point. Yeah,
read it and they're like, "Oh, he's coming. The cops are coming up." He literally just put it all out there. Give me all the information.
Yeah,
in front of an open. Everyone in there knows these two dudes are straight snitches. You don't do that. That's bad.
Well, he said this could get me killed, or I could get killed doing this.
You could get killed walking your doggy. So, what's the one bad that you could pick out of this movie?
No, I feel like I want to talk about another good one. The one thing I know you guys brought it up already, but when Chris sees Charlene and she does the thing, I didn't enjoy that. I didn't enjoy that scene. It wasn't bad. It was just, I don't know, a little. He looked like he was just so lost. I guess there was some emotion, but I don't know. It's hard to pick something.
Yeah, I mean, he was playing it up that he was like. He was all bandaged up. He'd just been shot, so they kind of like played the part that he was out of.
I also feel I'm with you a little bit on Sil. I like what they attempted to do there, Sil. But I agree with you for one thing. The cops would have not let him go. They would have grabbed him up. He would have taken him out the car to see if that was him.
There we go.
There's no way they would have been like, "All right, he's fine."
He's good to go.
He had a good ID, and the car came back clean and stuff.
Right.
So
yeah,
a little suspect.
It wasn't a good resolution for me, I guess. It could have been a little different, but hey, I'll take it.
Yeah, I think my one bad scene I had was Kevin's scene as well, the whole daughter in the tub scene, and I also was tossing around Jimmy's idea because you don't want to say that this movie needs to lose something, but the whole daughter sub
right
doesn't affect the movie at all. And the same thing with Waingro. Like, did you have to add a whole Waingro as a serial killer storyline? Because they mentioned that where it's like after he kills the prostitute, they're like, "Well, we think it's the same guy. We're gonna run the semen and see if it's comes up conclusive." And it's like, so he's a serial killer. Like, it's just such an unnecessary subplot that I guess adds another layer as to like why you want De Niro at the end to kill him, other than the fact that he's a snitch and a rat on the crew. He's also just like a not great guy. You know, he's a Nazi serial killer, so like you want him dead.
Well, I
but
guess
it
if
just
you
like
think of it,
they felt unnecessary.
You kind of feel good about everybody, even the good guys and the bad guys.
Yeah.
So I guess they kind of had to have, like, other than Van Zandt, you had to have somebody that you hated, I guess, to have the emotion. Like, think about it. What other characters were in the movie that you were like, I hate that fucker? Like,
yeah, you like the crew, like,
right? So they had, I guess, they had to have at least one guy that you could hate on.
That's true.
So that's
real
my
antagonist.
that's my bad. If I had to pick another bad scene, and it's not necessarily a bad scene, but the whole subplot of, I forget the character's name, but the guy that was working at the diner, you could have just had you could have been on the phone and called up a random guy and not had this whole subplot of this guy getting out of prison and going to a kitchen, working at a restaurant, and
the guy from Allstate.
Yeah, like it was a little unnecessary. But let's get back to the ugly. The one ugly scene. It didn't really hold up as well. Kevin, what's one scene for you that doesn't really hold up as much anymore?
Well, I'm going to agree with Michael Mann, because I saw an interview with him when someone asked him, like, would you change anything about this movie? And he went on about how he liked it, and he agreed it was like one of his best works. He's like, but if I had to, I'd probably lose the scene with Ralph, which is the guy where Vincent's wife has Ralph sitting on the couch after they just did it, and he's like, "You can sleep with my wife. You can stay here in your ex-husband's stupid postmodern architecture apartment. You can sit on her furniture, but you can't. I'm mad you can't watch my TV." So he said the whole Ralph thing he probably would lose.
Unnecessary.
So that was weird.
Jimmy, what's the ugly scene for you?
Oh God, the opening scene where Al Pacino's making love to his Wish.com Demi Moore wife. Oh,
just
like
just a close up of the tongue.
Yeah,
well, scoop my eyeballs out.
Yeah, she did have a wonky haircut in that thing.
Yeah, not a good look for anyone.
That was a very unnecessary opening scene. It's a heist movie. We're seeing an Al Pacino sex scene. Ooh, ah.
Well, she had a great ass.
And you was all up in it.
Diaz, what's the one ugly scene for you that didn't really age well?
You guys all said it was bad. I thought it was ugly. The suicide attempt, the whole rape subplot that he was a rapist. He was a raping serial killer.
Yeah.
How would Neil not know that about this? That was real ugly to me. But since we mentioned that in the bad, I got another thing that's ugly that doesn't hold up because there's the biggest plot hole in the movie. Neil got all these scores from the guy, Nate. You mean to tell me Hannah never knew about Nate? No backstory on Nate is done whatsoever. They can find all this information. You don't know how there's nothing on him.
He's a real heat. He's a real heat. He's got
something that doesn't hold up. They had to have figured out somehow.
That's true.
Where was that information coming from?
Yeah, that's a good point where it's like you just never get answered. And he should, if Hannah knows all of these people, he should know him.
Yeah, you don't. Neil's a great criminal, but you got to have an inside man.
Right.
Where's he getting the intel from?
Right.
Sil, what's your ugly? What doesn't hold up for you?
I think what doesn't hold up for me is like maybe how the women get treated at points. Right. They're just less than.
They're all side characters. That's
right.
it. Yeah,
they're just side characters, and that's it. They just add to like their story. But you can tell when Neil goes into the hotel and like tells straight up like you're gonna give him one chance, and if not, I'll do this. But this is what's gonna happen. So you clean up and go. Clean up and go. Right. That's not even his girl. Right.
That's
like,
his buddy's girl.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah. So things that maybe don't hold up. So.
They are just very much accessories in this movie. Yeah. I did originally have Wayne Grow being like a Nazi serial killer as my ugly that doesn't really hold up. But another one that just kind of doesn't hold up for me is the subplot of Chris losing all his money on the Super Bowl. Because he mentioned that he lost all his money on the Super Bowl, and I just don't. it didn't really get touched upon enough. It was just such a throwaway line. It's like
which
this
Super Bowl?
guy's. Yeah, so I think it was. So this is 95. So
95.
It would be the year, but this came out in December, so maybe like the 94 one. So that would be like Chargers.
No way.
No, 94 was Bills Cowboys, I believe, right?
Wait, what?
Someone check up.
94 was Bills Cowboys the second time, because 93 was Bills Cowboys, 92
Dallas
was
Cowboys Bills. Yeah, the Cowboys took it.
What was the 95 Super Bowl?
That was the Four Falls of Buffalo.
the 95 was 49ers and the Cowboys, I believe.
So 95 was Chargers 49ers.
Chargers 49ers.
And this movie does take place in LA, so maybe he's going for the closest home team of San Diego. I don't know, but either way, they got smoked 26-49. So hopefully he bet the under. But how are you going to bet? Like, that was Steve Young. I don't know how he's going to bet against Steve Young in the Super Bowl. So if he lost all his money there,
all makes sense now, right?
That's on him. So I just
see
something that didn't get
the detail in this movie. No.
Right? Yeah. So that was mine. Let's get into our next award, running solo award. What's one thing from this movie, whether it's acting, directing, the script, action sequences, what is like the absolute winner of this? And I'm probably willing to bet we all have the same
all
stuff.
of the above.
So Kevin, what's your one thing that's like, this is why I love this movie?
Acting.
Yeah. Yep. Jimmy?
The cat and mouse. I like.
Okay, so the aspect of the story. Okay, Diaz, what did you have?
The emotion of each character. Every character gets you invested. Even the asshole, even Wingo, you the fucking dick, but you like them. Like, no, you didn't like them, but you know what I mean. Like, you get
enjoy
invested.
seeing him on scenes.
Yeah, you got invested in.
There
all of them.
there wasn't any scenes where you're like, oh, that was cringy. Like they didn't pull off the acting. I mean, I can't point at one thing. We're like, well, that didn't work. It fell flat. The acting.
Even the secondary cops. Well, we thought you should know about this. Like, fuck, he caught us. Like, even just the cops in the background. Everything was.
Yeah. Sil, what's your running solo?
I'm with Kev. It's the acting.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I thought everyone was going to be, because mine is acting. If you have Pacino and De Niro in this thing headlining it, you can't miss. So,
speaking of that, Nick, we never. I know we're going to talk recast later, but you wanted to do something on those two specific characters as well, right?
Yeah, so we'll talk about that in our time machine time, which is what we're going to step into now. So time machine time. If you weren't watching last week, Kevin did something really, really cool. We used to do a thing called Cast Forward, where we would cast this movie with all present day actors, but it was kind of a little messy. What Kevin did is what we're going to be all doing now, and that's just simply a cast swap. So you are going to be picking any movie, and you have to use that cast to recast this movie. So let's see if I can kind of go along with mine real quick. So for mine, I'm cast swapping The Departed. I had to pick something with a absolute stacked cast. So I would put Leo in the Vincent Hanna role. We've seen Leo as the bad guy before. Now I want to see him on the opposite side. Neil, I would put as Matt Damon, who would kind of be running the show. Chris, that number 2, I would actually use Anthony Anderson as the number 2. Michael, that down for everything kind of guy, I'd be using Mark Wahlberg. As my Wayne Grow, I'd be going all the way down to the bottom, and I'm using Alec Baldwin. He is just the absolute nut job. He's the one that's
a loose cannon.
Yeah, exactly. Nate,
although his acting days are over.
Yeah, he's done now. But Nate, I'd be using Jack Nicholson in that role. Yeah, I don't think at this day and age Nicholson is leading any. I don't think it's believable to see him leading either of these casts.
Yeah.
And to round it out, Edie is going to be my Vera Farmiga. She's going to be taking the role of Edie for that one. So I'm very interested to see everybody else's movies. So Kevin, do you have your list ready and who you're going to be pulling from what?
I believe I do. So I did the Place Beyond the Pines.
Okay.
So Vincent, I'm using Ray Liotta.
Nice.
Chris is going to be Ryan Gosling.
Whoa.
So Michael is Bradley Cooper. So Marshala Ali is the cook. What is his name? Donald was the character, I think.
Yeah.
Ben Mendelsohn, which I think he's Neil.
Okay.
And then the women that were in this movie, like none of them were distinctly matched. You could any way you want to post the other three.
Yeah.
None of them spoke to being a certain character.
Yeah. That's a go. I forgot how stacked this cast was for The Place Beyond the Pines. That was a pretty big one right there. I like that. Nice. Jimmy, what movie did you pull from, and who's going to be who in your quote unquote cast swap of Heat?
So I was thinking the same thing as Departed, so I had to call an audible real quick.
I mean, but I would have liked to still hear your Departed because I'm curious if they would have been the same or not.
Well, I actually thought of another kind of movie. I think would be fun.
It's
I'm new
fun
to
too
this.
because you have to look for these like ensemble for this movie in particular. You do have to look for those big ensemble movies.
So I was going to do Smoking Aces.
Okay, again ensemble because you need to pull these main
I don't
characters.
think I've seen it.
It's awesome if you haven't. It's great. So for my Detective Hanna, I would use Ray Liotta.
Ray's getting double tapped today.
Yeah. As my Neil, I'd go in a different direction. I'd see Ryan Reynolds as, or even Chris. I'd probably put Ryan Reynolds as Chris. For Jon Voight's character, I would use Andy Garcia. For Danny Trejo's character, I would use Common as the getaway guy. Jeremy Piven, I would see if he could really be that villain, and I would see if he could pull off Neil.
Nice.
I think he could. He's kind of a little unhinged. I mean, he's a little more paranoid in that movie. In Smoking Aces, but I think he could pull it off. Chris Pine, I would probably use as he's kind of a wild card in that movie. I would probably use Chris Pine as like Wayne Grau because he's kind of a redneck creeper in that movie. And he's what are they? They're these like redneck brothers in the movie Smoking Aces. So I'd probably use Chris Pine as that. And the lovely Alicia Keys as Edie.
Here we go.
So what year was this movie, Jim?
2006.
I'd say mid 2000s. Yeah, this is a good,
check it out.
Good
It's
ensemble,
awesome.
fun movie to check out.
Or even as Neil, probably Ben Affleck. He's got a small role in it, but
Hey, if he's on the cast, you can pick him.
yeah,
I like that.
I just feel like it's too close to the town. So I don't know.
It's similar, but it's.
I mean,
but it's not
just
close
in
to
that-
Heat. It's
Yeah.
different than Heat.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, Sil, I'm very curious what you pulled out for us.
I'm changing it up a little bit. Definitely not a movie, but a show.
Okay.
All right. It's a show. So I'm actually taking the cast from the Daredevil Netflix series.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And honestly, just got inspired because I think Vincent D'Onofrio will do the best Michael Cherito there is, right?
That's a good swap right there.
I think he'll pull that off. So yeah, I got that. I would have probably John Bernthal as Hannah, probably.
Okay.
And then Charlie Cox will be Neil.
Mm-hmm.
And then Foggy Nelson or Eldon Helson will be Chris. Now I'm just pulling kind of like who it is, but and everybody else you can fill in. But
yeah, that's some good ones.
If you have D'Onofrio, Cox, and Barenshall, that's a good.
Yeah,
that's a good top three hitters right there. That's your leadoff man right there.
Yep.
I like that one. And Diaz, what are we using for your cast swap?
You would honestly think me being the corny great action guy that I would take the Expendables, and I was gonna take the Expendables. I really was, especially because there's a great skit. Kev, we got to look this up. The skit where they talk about Schwarzenegger and Stallone doing the scene from Hit with them. It's a hilarious skit.
Really?
by Ari Spears. Look it up if you haven't heard it,
That
guys.
sounds familiar. I might have seen it.
It's Ari Spears making fun of Heat, saying Stallone and Schwarzenegger would have made that movie great, except you couldn't hear them. So that's a little shout out there. If you like this movie, definitely look up that skit.
Hold up. Picture the same scene with Stallone and Schwarzenegger. You ain't gonna be able to understand shit. Stallone is doing Pacino. You know there's a flip side to the coin. I might have to take it down. I won't like it, but I'll do it.
But I didn't go Expendables because I think it would have been too easy for me. But we're gonna double tap another actor. I'm going the Inception cast.
Oh,
all right.
DiCaprio.
Yeah, baby. DiCaprio's getting double dipped here.
Leo's coming up.
Look, I believe Leo was the good guy in one of yours earlier, right? I think it was.
He was. I had him as Hannah.
Nah, he is my Neil, and his team, his Chris, is Gordon Levitt. That's gonna be his Chris, his young protege. He's younger.
Okay.
He's trying to show him the ropes because my Neil wants to give up. He's almost done. One last score, and he's handed the team over to Chris, which is Josh Gordon-Levitt. The muscle ain't going nowhere though, and that's Tom Hardy. He's down. He's gonna ride with Chris for the next show. The cop is gonna be Cillian Murphy. He's gonna try to hunt Neil down in every way. My Wayne Grow is Elliot Page.
Okay.
That's my Wayne Grow because I think as a creep, as a freaky person, Elliot Page's own history of all the stuff that they've been through, they could bring a different aspect to that character. Wayne Grow is going to be Elliot Page, a young guy that's just tapped. Yeah. So Elliot Page will play my Wayne Grow with a little bit bigger of a role, and my Van Zeet is Tom Berenger.
Okay. And you have some other people in this movie too, like Ken Watanabe, like Michael Caine. Michael Caine.
Cane's my
There's a lot to work with here.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
He's the Mr. Intel.
Killian Murphy could be a good Wayne Grow. He's creepy.
Oh, he could play that too.
I'm telling you, something about Elliot Page kind of in that movie Hard Candy, like she was like when he was still hadn't transitioned yet, when she was Elliot. Hard Candy was a mind.
Well, I mean, looking at the pictures here, Lucas Haas there could be the Wayne Grow too.
That's what I'm saying. But I just think Elliot would just do something different with it, man.
Yeah.
What about your Michael? Who's your Michael?
Even in the Umbrella Academy, I don't know if y'all watch that or not, but on Netflix,
my Michael,
Page is so
my Michael's Tom Hardy. My Michael was Tom Hardy.
Oh, bet. I missed that.
This is such a good cast right here too. I forgot the cast of Inception. And it looks just like Dark Knight for me now. Because you have in the Batman universe, you got Joseph Gordon, you got Tom Hardy, you got Michael Caine, you got Cillian Murphy.
You have Ken Watanabe, right? Isn't he?
Ken Watanabe, I think, is in one of those as well.
You think he's in the first one? Don't they think he's Ra's al Ghul at first?
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is, because this is also a Nolan film, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that would be my cast. I didn't go with Expendables. I wanted to so bad. But I didn't.
All right. So let's get into our time warp real quick. We're going to kind of bring this up to current day standards. So if this movie was remade today, who are the two quote unquote draw actors that would reprise the roles or take the roles over of De Niro and Pacino? Who are like the two, top dogs, whether it's box office or critically acclaimed or something like that, where you could theoretically replace them and kind of gain the same notoriety that these two did? Kevin, I'm curious who you would have picked for today's standards.
Well, I cheated, and I would just use my two from my cast, and we could just go with Ryan Gosling and Bradley Cooper.
It's a big draw. They're definitely, Ryan Gosling nominated for Best Supporting Actor this year. Bradley Cooper nominated for Best Actor and Best Movie in Maestro. So they're up there. Right. Jimmy, who are the two that you think today are taking over this?
I'd probably have to go. And it was funny too, because it's just like The Departed when the two heartthrobs finally met up in DiCaprio and Damon. So I'd probably have to go with Leonardo DiCaprio and Matt Damon.
Good one. Leo is that guy, right? You hear his name and people go to his movies. The only downfall with his movies nowadays is they're 3.5-hour Scorsese movies. So it's tough. It's a tough watch.
Yeah, Matt Damon's still hanging around as well. I mean, he was awesome in Oppenheimer. Very underrated. Yeah. And as like his role as was it Leslie Grove? Is that his
Yeah.
name?
Yep. Diaz, who's the two like draws right now that you think are
Give
at
me
least in that
the
same field?
give me the long-awaited reunion. They did one movie together, critically acclaimed, and they haven't done shit else together. Give me Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise.
All right. That would be a draw right there. I thought you were going to
The-
go
the-
with like Adam Sandler and Steve Buscemi or something like that.
John Lovett.
Yeah, John Lovett. Sil, who are the two guys that are taking over these roles tonight or today?
What if we do Iron Man and Doctor Strange?
Ooh.
Robert
Benedict
Downey
Cumberbatch and Downey.
Cumberbatch.
Who would be
Okay.
who? Who would be who?
Cumberbatch would be Hannah.
Really?
All right. So I see your Iron Man and Strange, and I raise you my two, Iron Man and Joker, Downey Jr. and Joaquin Phoenix. Because I think Joaquin is like silently, like I feel like he hasn't been around a lot. Like lately, he did Beau is Afraid, but he's got Joker 2 with Lady Gaga coming out in the fall, which I'm sure is going to get.
He would have brought Wayne Grow to a new level.
Yeah.
Would he be Hannah?
I would probably have. I'd probably have Joaquin as Neil and Downey as Hannah.
Oh, I've got one.
Kind of play like that. What do you got?
Give me No Country for Old Men. Give me Josh Brolin as Hannah, and give me Javier Bardem as Neil.
That's
That'd be
that's
good.
a good one right there too.
If you've seen that movie, you'd know exactly why Javier Bardem would be perfect for that role.
Ooh, I got one. I got another. I got another.
What do we got? What do we get?
Johnny Depp and Ryan Reynolds.
Okay, those are big names.
And
Depp's return.
Yep, Depp is definitely Hannah though.
Yeah.
Just tapped.
One more little time warp. How does this look in today's modern age with like technology? How does this go down today? Like we kind of briefly touched upon it with like the cell phones and having burners and stuff like that. But like, is this a movie that could still be made the way it is today, like this heist movie, or is it something completely different?
I think Money Heist, the show, has to. I don't know if have you guys seen Money Heist?
Yeah,
I've
love it.
seen.
Right, and I think that's probably one of the most, as in like current events type of heist. Is different. These guys just drop themselves in there and eventually leave, but whoever's outside starts thinking like the professor, right? And they're trying to match or outmatch him. He is just too good that he just makes her fall in love with him first, and then they get another one. But
it's tough because like I feel like this isn't like a shoot 'em up movie nowadays. This is like a cyber attack movie. This is a cyber heist. You know, this is all digital currency nowadays. I feel like if you put the movie Heat out today, people would question the why. You know, why are these guys going through the effort of shooting up the entire street of LA when you could just do it at home?
You can just build gift cards on your computer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Go on a Discord server and get a bunch of gas station gift cards and
So I think the currency part of it, like, I mean, eventually banks are going to just have less and less money in them because there's less and less cash really in circulation. So I think the only thing I would do to like bring it up to date is instead of a bank or stealing money or bonds, like they steal some commodity, like they do this huge heist where they hit like a Mecum auction and they roll out with like 100 vintage cars, or they hit like a comic book convention and like get the most expensive first edition Superman comic.
Funny.
I mean, you know, and like they
Funko Pop.
Because first of all, like there's probably less security, right? And they're not expecting like this strong-armed heist guys with machine guns showing up, and like they just rolling the cars out. Like
so true.
And then they could bring the Fast and Furious crew in to be the drivers. Like go.
It's like the one scene where they pull into the garage and Fast 13 or something, and they
Fast 2 with the garage.
open up the doors and about 1,000 cars come pulling out.
But again,
I would like to see this done in today's day and age.
Right, 90s movie, but there's nothing in it that you're like, oh man, that just is hokey and wouldn't happen today. It kind of all holds true.
I mean, well, look at the town. That's only what 14. I mean, that's 2010, right? 14 years ago. So I mean, it's not totally like in the Stone Age with with the heist movie.
Yeah, no.
I see what you're saying, though.
Yeah, let's get to our prequel, sequel, requel, remake, spinoff, or pass. What should be done with Heat today, if anything? Kevin, what would you? I know this is an all-time classic, but do you think there's room for this to be in today's day and age?
I do. I think, and I'm usually like the one that's against sequels, but I think this way because like all the ocean movies, like they're all good.
Right.
So I think if you like other than I don't know how you'd play off the main characters, it doesn't survive this movie, but I think a sequel could work for this. I mean, it depends on again like what of course. In a perfect world, you'd have, the actors, at least like Val Kilmer. Like you don't have either one of them available now. So you don't have Kilmer. Oh, none of them. Sizemore too, right, is gone. So
yeah. What
let
about
me say,
Natalie Portman?
If you had some of the more actors available for continuity, then a sequel would work. A sequel called Heat with all new people probably wouldn't work. So I would be happy with a sequel, but unfortunately, because none of the main players really are available. You have you have De Niro, I guess, and Pacino.
Well, in a heist movie,
you don't have. Yeah, so I don't know.
What about Natalie Portman?
Make it work.
You pull Portman in, the daughter of a failed marriage detective. Does she go the other way? Is she now on the other side of the law, or does she try to track down the guy that ruined her parents' marriage?
If they do a sequel in the spirit of this, enough continuity of players, whoever they are, not a sequel like Roadhouse where nothing but the name of the movie is in there.
Yeah,
they can do a true sequel and have enough continuity and carryover. Yes.
Well, you could use Chris's son, Dominic.
Yep,
he's
that's
like a little kid.
Jimmy, exactly what I was going to say to you. Dominic.
So do you do like villain. Dominic? You do a Dominic Natalie Portman thing, and you reverse the roles. Maybe Dominic turned out to be a cop, and Natalie Portman turned out to be the villain, and they're, you killed my dad. I'm trying to track, like something like that.
I think there's
that a reach. Yeah,
and
Jimmy. What would
again
you do?
You'd have to have you'd have to have the same quality that Michael Mann did with this one. If not him, it has to be the same quality.
I'd have him. I mean, if he's not directing this thing, I'd have him as at least a producer. Jimmy, what are you doing with this movie?
I think there's a lot of enough of big time actors where you could pull this off as a remake, and Heat would be a big time draw just because of this movie itself. So I think that would put
So you're saying sequel or remake? Like
I would do a remake. Yeah, I think they're just going over. I mean, with Diaz's Inception crew or any one of them. Yeah, I think there's a lot where you could do a lot with this. I think a remake would be fun.
Yeah.
Well, if you're asking me, I would definitely say I agree with Jimmy wholeheartedly. Remake, even though a continuation sequel, you can use Natalie Portman and randomly cast Dominic, Chris's son. But I would go remake. And Nick, you said everything about digital currency and all that. Go after Wall Street and stocks and bonds. Nah, baby. Go from LA to New York and go for Fort Knox. Get all the gold.
No, all right.
Make it a gold.
I was even thinking too, like casinos too.
Yeah, but that would be too. I think that would be too much Ocean 11. People would think so much about that. How they robbed the casino. That granted, I think people might think of Die Hard 3 when it comes to Fort Knox too. But if you get the right crew to hit up that, I think Fort Knox would be the biggest bet because not many movies have attacked Fort Knox, and that's everybody's money. So
Sil, what are you doing with this movie?
Every time somebody said something, I just got like a different opinion on it. At first, I was like, no, don't do anything with it. This is it. But then it's like, yeah, you can make it, maybe keep the. I mean, I guess everybody dies though. Like, who's alive to do the?
Chris is alive.
Right? It's just
Hannah's
Chris
alive.
and Hannah, right? So,
Charlene.
I was thinking like maybe the bad guy of Fast and the Furious 22 could be Hannah, or something like that. But I don't see that. This is a gem. I'm so glad I watched it. I'm so glad we talked about it, and I think it's just perfect how it is. It's
We agreed on this movie so quick too to do, by the way.
Well, when the people who had seen it all went, "Oh my God, that's great," and then the people that hadn't seen it were like, "We never saw it." That's when we're like, "We're doing it because
we're doing Heat. We're doing Heat." Yeah, I agree with everyone. So I would actually remake this, but not as a movie. I would send this out to either Netflix or HBO and have them do like a 10-episode, 10-hour series and really dive into these sub stories and kind of expand on some of that stuff a little bit more. Because if you could do some of those and that's why some of these sub stories didn't work for me, is because you didn't talk about them. But if you could talk about them and stretch out to the level that you did everything else, like it's just a no-brainer. You know, you don't want to watch a 4 or 5 hour movie, but I would watch a 10-hour series.
The reason you probably feel that way is because when this was going to be a TV series originally, Michael Mann had these elaborate stories where he wanted to build out these characters over multiple episodes. And to do that, recently he's writing a book. He's going to write, I think he's going to write 3 books if he hasn't written one already, to do just that, to bring all of these characters full stories.
Heat 2 is a book.
I did see
is
that.
A book.
Yeah. And I think it's
like a prequel and a sequel.
3 total. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice.
I mean, you kind of get that with Breaking Bad, you know?
It's very similar to like a Breaking Bad kind of thing.
The cat and mouse, and then you have all these, you know, everyone's going through something. I mean,
Animal Kingdom, if you guys didn't watch that TV series, it's good.
Yeah, I mean, if Heat came out, if there was no such thing as Heat and this came out as a Netflix series right now, it would be number 1. Everyone would be talking about it. This would be the number 1 movie, like TV show. So before we sign off, let's get to our popcorn scale real quick. A 1 through 5 of Heat. 1 being a burnt, crappy little kernel. 5 being that perfect golden buttered popcorn. Where does this movie land for you? Kevin, let's start with you one last time. 1 through 5.
I'm usually the guy that likes to leave a little headroom in case something better comes along, but I'm just going all in. I'm giving it a 5.
5, yeah. Jimmy?
I'm going to give this a 4 because I'm still a Point Break guy at the end of the day.
You just can't put it past him. Diaz.
Would you put Point Break for like 4.5 or would Point Break be your 5?
I'd give Point Break a 5.
Diaz?
4.5. Only reason it doesn't get a 5, the only reason, no need for the rape sub story and no need for the suicide attempt. That brings it down to a half a kernel, but it is it's close. 4.5.
Sil, where are you at on Heat?
This is a 5 for me.
5 all timer, just doesn't miss. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat with Diaz. I give it a 4.5, just because I think some of those sub stories, I would have rather have this been a 4-hour movie that dove into them more and had them play a factor versus getting a 3-hour movie and have it kind of be nothing. You know, I'd rather have a 2.5-hour movie with all the subplots taken out, or I'd rather have a 4-hour movie with them expanded upon. I don't want the in-between, which is kind of what we got in a couple of those instances. Yeah. Whereas I was ready for more. You know, 2 hours wasn't enough.
We'll wait for the Zack Snyder's cut.
Yeah, exactly. The Snyder cut, the director's cut, where it's 5.5 hours long, which is
the man edition.
Okay.
The man
edition. Yeah, exactly. All right. Before we sign off, is there any other final thoughts, or are we ready to send this thing back in the time machine?
There's one more thing. So Richie, in the movie, the guy's brother who gives him the info.
Yeah,
you know who that is?
He looks so familiar. He was in Ace Ventura. Oh yeah.
9 to 5 for my money. So the weekend comes.
See, I recognized him from Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, because he plays a role in that as well. Well, I really don't think we could actually top that. So let's send this movie back to 1995 and begin our reprogramming of the popcorn time machine. We will see you all next time with another blast from the past. Remember, be kind, rewind, and we'll see you next time.
Later.
Peace.